Chair, you have a live mic.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the commissioner meeting. And I want to remind everyone to turn your cell phones off. It's pretty embarrassing when it goes off and it's way deep in your purse or your pocket and you can't get it and everybody's looking at you. Ask me how I know. So just a reminder for the public speakers, we got a 3-minute, you got a 30-second warning. And when the yellow light goes off, that's 30 seconds. And so when the red light goes off, that's nip it in the bud. So with that, County Manager.
Well, good morning. We are going to begin with our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation will be by Pastor Kurt Anderson, Naples Community Church, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Tim Walker, Army veteran 1962 to 1965, Specialist E4, U.S. Army Security Agency.
3 minutes doesn't count for me, right? I thought I got 45. Yeah.
We need more than 3.
All right. Let's bow together. Our Heavenly Lord, we may have heard about it or seen it ourselves, but some magazines said that we're the happiest, healthiest, safest community in the United States. Guard us that we swell with pride, for that pride will enable us to do very little. Instead, may we be smitten by fear and humility, that we may work hard and enter into the labors of those who've gone before us. Let their efforts, who've brought us thus far, may we build upon their good work and do what we must do to make provision for the poor and the prosperous to live their lives according to the high calling to which they have been called. We're not here today by accident or random chance, but by work and prayer under your providential care. Protect and guide us, O Lord, we ask in the name of your incarnate love. Amen.
Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. For those that are military veterans, please render a hand salute. For all others, please place your right hand over your heart and follow me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could you use one of the microphones? If you.
One of the microphones up here.
Thank you all, and good morning to everyone, commissioners, and all the good neighbors and friends of the VFW and of me, Tom Walker. Thank you. Wanted to tell you a little bit about the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 7721 here in Collier County. You may not know us, but we've been here for 52 years. We are located near the intersection of Collier Boulevard and Pine Ridge Road. Official address is 13131 Collier Boulevard. Our VFW post serves all of Collier County and is the only post to do so today. COVID caused the other 2 VFW posts to close. They were Marco Island and downtown Naples. We are 1,000 members strong, which includes our VFW auxiliary. But most importantly, something to think about and help us with. Together, we must take care of our veterans. Your help is needed. We asked your complete support to fund the Florida VA nursing home in Collier County. This is the most significant veteran project ever proposed for Southwest Florida. We are counting on you to secure the federal funding for this important project. Your support is urgently needed, and we salute you for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, that brings us to agenda changes for October 22nd, 2024. First, we have an add-on item 10C. This is a recommendation to adopt a resolution in support of proposed constitutional amendment 2 concerning the right to hunt and fish in Florida. This item is brought to the agenda by Commissioner McDaniel, and you should have received a one-way communication with the executive summary and the resolution last night. Move item 16A 24 to 11D. This is a recommendation to approve a statutory deed between Collier County Transportation Management Services Department and the Conservation Collier Program for approximately 7.51 acres under the Conservation Collier Land Acquisition Program Exceptional Benefit Ordinance to construct a stormwater drainage pond to be used as part of the Veterans Memorial Boulevard Extension Project at a cost not to exceed $1,480,114. This is being moved to the regular agenda at Commissioner Saunders and Commissioner LaCastro's separate requests. Move item 16F6 to 11E. This is a recommendation to approve a request for a tourism impact study for the Sun and Fun Lagoon in the amount of $38,000 and make a finding that this expenditure promotes tourism. This is being moved at Commissioner McDaniel's request. One agenda note, item 16A8, after publishing the agenda, an updated resolution was added. We do have court reporter breaks scheduled for 10:30 and again at 2:50. With that, County Attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioners, agenda changes or ex parte?
Mr. McDaniel.
I have no changes to the agenda and walked in here without my ex parte, so I know I have ex parte. I don't have any ex parte on the consenter summary. I know that. It's on regular I do.
Mr. LaCastro.
I believe I did that.
I've got meetings and emails for 9B, and on the
Consent.
consent and summary, I have nothing. Yeah.
Right. Mr. Kowal.
I have no changes to the agenda, and I have no ex partes for summary or consent.
And Commissioner Saunders.
Mr. Chairman, I have no changes to the agenda and no disclosure on the consent agenda.
Same as me. No changes, no ex parte.
We could get a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Mr. Chair, we do have one registered speaker for a summary agenda item 17C. Would you like to hear him now?
Yes.
Gerald Howard. Mr. Howard?
Good morning, Commissioners. I just want to briefly talk about Agenda 17C in regard to the name changing of Eustis Avenue in Immokalee, Florida to Howard Way. I'm here to speak in behalf of my uncle, Huey Howard, and his late wife, Dorcas Howard. They was a pillar in the community for over 60 years. My uncle was in the farming business since the 50s. My late aunt was my first grade teacher in the 60s at Pinecrest, right there on 9th and Street in Immokalee. So with them being fixture in the community and have done a lot for the community and in the community, I would hope that this agenda pass to show support to the family for what they have done to the community. And thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. We have a motion and a second yet to approve the consent and summary.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Welcome to Howard Street.
God, I hope my kids I hope my kids talk about me that way. It's Howard Way. Howard Way.
Howard Way.
Howard Way. Speed limit on Howard Way is, I heard it's 85 miles per hour. Is that right?
I couldn't be more. I couldn't be more proud to bring forward something like that, just to honor that gentleman. He's been my friend for forever. I own another business out by a piece of property that he owns on State Road 82, and Dorcas was teaching Sunday school. Huey didn't want to go to church for Sunday school, and so he'd go check the cows. And he and I'd stand out there and commune with the Lord at sunrise, and he always had a big chew at the back end, and we would have really, really nice conversations in the early morning hours on Sunday morning, and then he'd get to look, well, Miss Dorcas is going to want me to be to Sunday school, so I got to go. And off he'd go, and he'd go to church. So my friend.
Great.
Commissioners, that brings us to items 2A and 2B. These were continued from the October 8th, 2024 board meeting. This is approval of minutes for the September 10th, 2024 BCC meeting and the September 19th, 2024 BCC budget hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of both items.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They're in the books.
That brings us to item 3, awards and recognitions. And before we get started with our awards for the employees, we wanted to briefly thank the staff. We've had back-to-back weather events here with Helene and Milton, and it's been a really tough rainy season as well. So a huge thank you, and we'll say it again when Dan Summers gets up here, to our teams, from the people in the call center to the building department who went out after the storm and did record damage assessment, stormwater, road and bridge, water, wastewater, and anybody that I'm not naming doesn't mean that we're not thanking you. All of the county employees that came together and helped our community during this event. But specifically, from our building department, Richard Long is retiring on November 1st after 19 years with the county. He started as an electrical inspector, then moved up to chief electrical inspector, building division manager, and was finally promoted to division director in November of 2016. Over the last 10 years, the building department has completed 459,360 permits and 2,428,766 inspections. Richard?
Can we fact check all that? That just
Yeah.
seems like a lot.
That's a lot. Richard has led the assessment teams for the last 6 major hurricanes, the most recent being Helene, with a preliminary damage totals of $7.8 million, and Milton with preliminary damage totals of $33.5 million. Richard and the chiefs assembled quick response teams to assist Lee County the day after Helene, with 5 inspectors, and 9 inspectors were sent the day after Milton. Thank you, Rich, for your leadership and the dedication of your team. And if you'd like to come forward so we can get a photo with the board.
There he is.
Motion to disapprove the retirement.
I'm thinking. Thank you.
Thanks.
Get him first,
Him all alone.
and his chiefs.
These are the chiefs that back him up. They do all the work.
They look exhausted.
I'm thinking.
They haven't yet begun to fight.
We're gonna get a speech out of him with all the no speeches. Okay.
Gotta go back to work.
A few days left.
That brings us to our employee awards. First up, we have a 20-year attendee, Bernard Furrick, wastewater. Congratulations. 20 years.
You can go shake hands, then we'll give you this. Okay. And then Ed's, then I'll come by.
Congratulations.
20 years.
Next up, we have Jonathan Harridan, Emergency Medical Services, 30 years. Congratulations.
Rick John.
Congratulations.
You retired.
Today. It's like, I'm out of here. I'm going fishing.
We'll give him a plaque. Got to have a plaque.
That's right. Hold it up in the middle.
Let's get Tony and Bruce.
Chief.
Chiefs.
Everybody hold on to your money.
Yeah, exactly.
Next up, we have our 35-year attendees. Irving Baez, Parks and Recreation. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Let's, 35 years, let's get our Parks folks up here for another photo. Come on up.
You started working before seesaws came.
I'm thinking. She must have been a baby. Annie, how do you do?
How do you do?
I haven't seen you in a
I
minute.
know, I've been retired, enjoying life now.
Really?
Simon didn't say.
James, get on his shoulders.
We have another 35-year attendee, Heather Sweet, Utilities Finance Operations. Congratulations. Okay, don't run away. We're going to get utilities up here with you. I know there's a bunch of them back there. Come on up, public utilities.
Glutton for punishment. That's a lot. That's painful.
That's a lot.
Don't run away, Dr. George. Last but not least, 35 years, Dr. George Yomez.
Dr. George, awesome, man.
You got another 35 left in you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, good.
I'm looking forward to 10
Yeah.
more.
That's it. Just a young pup.
All right, now, public utilities, come on up. Let's go. Come on. Oh, Heather.
Oh, here comes the fam.
Comes the future governor.
Let's get public utilities, and then let's get one with Heather.
Come to Gov.
You can come with public utilities, too.
Daddy.
So we're gonna have 2 rows, right? One in the back and one in the front. So
You gotta speak slowly. Speak slowly, they're from utilities.
all right. Ready? 3 rows. We're on 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we're gonna go
Really? Really?
All right, so you can't see me, you're not gonna be in the photo, okay? Here we go, one more time, back. 1, 2, 3.
Heather. One more time, guys. One alone? Yeah, let's do it. One alone. Just, it's not 35 years that you get every day, right? Uh-huh. Thank you. Okay. That brings us to proclamations, item 4. Item 4A is a proclamation designating October 25th through November 2nd, 2024 as Mobility Week in Collier County, to be accepted by Brian Wells, Director, Public Transit and Neighborhood Enhancement, and Omar De Leon, Transit Manager. Congratulations. Morning. Morning.
Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good morning. How do you do?
Good morning.
Here we go. Smile on 3. 1, 2, 3. Sorry. And then smile. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Good morning, Board. Thank you for the proclamation this morning. My name is Brian Wells. I'm your Division Director for Public Transit and Neighborhood Enhancement. Want to encourage folks in their community to try transit on Mobility Week, especially on our free Tri-Transit Day on Saturday, November 2nd. It's the last day for early voting, and we're teamed with the election office to encourage folks to get out and vote early if they'd like to, and they can do so free on a bus on Saturday on our fixed route service. So we're encouraging folks to make that opportunity and get around for free that day. If you haven't been on a bus before, we encourage you to try that. We do yeoman's work I have an excellent team. It's my privilege to lead that group. Many years they've been involved with CAT and CAT Connect, our paratransit, and it's my privilege to work with them. They're very dedicated to making transit safe and secure and as reliable as we can in our traffic here in Collier County. So thank you for the time. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Brian.
Commissioners, Troy's going to pull up our photo loop here, but your next proclamation is 4B. It's a proclamation recognizing the individuals who fostered animals from Collier County Domestic Animal Services during Hurricane Milton. We do have a number of attendees here, both volunteers, fosters, and Miss Meredith McLean, your Director of Domestic Animal Services. Congratulations. Don't be shy.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. How do you do? Gauntlet. Here you go, Meredith.
Hello, Michelle. How'd you get by me? I didn't see.
Two cameras. Double fisted. Okay, get a little something now.
Good morning. I just want to give some numbers quickly on the storm fosters and their importance when we are getting ready and preparing the shelter for the storm. So we all know that staff may have not been able to make it into work the next day, so it was really important to get animals out of the shelter during that time so we can minimize the load and impact that the staff might need to take care of at the shelter. During that time, we kind of got with our volunteers. Jane, who's not here, was one of the leaders on speaking with people and seeing who they could foster. We got 78 animals out of the shelter within 2 days before the storm. So that is a big feat to take on, and not only did those animals get out of the shelter during that time, many of them got adopted, and if they didn't get adopted, we got to learn much more about them. So I just want to give a second round of applause to the volunteers and the staff who did that for us. Thank you.
If we could get a motion to accept the proclamations, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. So moved.
That brings us to item 5. 5A is an update by the Pelican Bay Foundation, Inc. on pickleball at Pelican Bay Community Park.
Commissioners, good morning. Thank you for allocating some time on your agenda for us this morning. My name is Tony DeRico. I'm the president of Pelican Bay Foundation, and I'm joined by Melanie Miller, our vice president.
Good morning. Thank you for having us, and we're excited to share this update with you. Let's see if I can get this to, okay. So the things we're going to go through is construction management, our current timeline, fire access and work site updates, upcoming town hall, review of contract dates, and then any comments and questions. So our current progress on construction management. Orco is our owner representative construction observations, and they've been hired as our lead owner's rep. Chris Hagan is here with us today as well. And then we have gone out and received multiple bids. We've chosen Ritzman as the court contractor and Curran Young Construction as general contractor. These contracts are in final phase of revision, and we hope to finalize those contracts by the end of the week or next week. And then we're in permits with several agencies and permit sections. Josh Freth is also civil engineering, and he has updated us. Some are in their second round, and some have some questions to be answered. Josh is with Peninsula Engineering, and then Parker Mudgett Smith Architects also has, both of those firms have been consistent from pre-construction, and they will stay on the project through closeout.
We wanted to share also just an updated version of our project timeline with you. We would have loved nothing more than to have these courts and this entire facility delivered to the county by this season, but unfortunately our design process has taken much longer than we had anticipated, particularly measures we have taken in the area of sound attenuation. But this is our current view. I'll give you the bookends. Melanie already commented on our permitting window. We'd like to have our shovels in the ground in December and be playing pickleball sometime in June. That's about a 6-month construction window, which we think is very doable given the current market conditions. Also wanted to share an updated site plan. No substantive changes since the last view, since our last update. We, per county specifications, we added a swale, a natural swale in the south and in the east of the court facility. And everything else is located where it previously was the last time you looked at this site plan. The one thing we wanted to call your attention to is what we're envisioning as a requirement for the build envelope and the construction envelope that's depicted in the black square outline on the map. And as you can see, this takes up nearly the entire park facility and up to and of course including the parking facility, which we're going to be expanding. Also wanted to share just because we haven't included an elevation of the player pavilion, but this is just for your information. This is a slightly larger version of what we had started with, but we're anticipating high demand for courts, high demand for play activity. So we wanted to make sure that the player staging and comfort area was generous. We believe this will fit the bill, a facility, a shade structure of this size. There's also in the enclosed portion, which you can't see in any detail on this rendering, but there's restrooms and a small pro shop where we're going to be providing instant retail for the consumers.
And then we wanted to share information that we have been working closely with staff in Parks and Rec. We have 2 public town halls coming up at Veterans Park Administrative Building on October 28th. We have they've been promoted through Collier County, and we're promoting within our network as well. We also held for our members at Pelican Bay town halls in August, and that video remains available on our website for members. Contract dates. So the county and foundation agreed to improvements within 240 days of August 22nd when the contract was signed. That was completed. The courts being completed within 6 months of commencing construction. That is our timeline. And remaining improvements completed within 12 months. We expect everything to be in the 6-month time frame. And then Pelican Bay Foundation became concessionaire on site as of April. And then we've also provided the insurance information to County Parks and Rec. So those are all the contract dates and requirements. We're available for any comments and questions.
Great.
Commissioners, again, we thank you for the time. We are thrilled to start this project. We're thrilled to finish this project, and we're thrilled to unveil it to the Collier County residents and the members of Pelican Bay. It's going to be a quality facility, and you're going to be very proud of it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks, Michelle.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 5B. This is a Hurricane Milton after action summary. Mr. Dan Summers, your Director of Emergency Management, is here to present.
Commissioners, good morning. For the record, Dan Summers. And boy, I like being here talking to you after the event as opposed to before the event. But one way or the other, we are have an opportunity to discuss some after action items with you. Troy, I'm not into, here we go. I want to take a moment and, as the county manager mentioned earlier, to thank our partners. Rest assured that while we had some very good operations and generally successful, we know that these hurricane events continue to impact lives, and folks are in various stages of recovery. And we're sensitive to that. I want to treat this event, and I hope you all understand that we treat this as a marathon. The response is one thing, recovery is quite another, and we're working really hard to make sure that every program and resource is leveraged. In addition to that, in my career here, as you know, I have North Carolina roots, and seeing what is going on in the entire Southeast with disaster response is quite gut-wrenching, frankly. But we are working together and could not be more proud of this community and the partnership and the teamwork that we have put forward. I think it's important for you to have a little visibility statewide as to what's going on as we drill down into Collier County. And a real thanks to this governor's administration and Kevin Guthrie, because we have had every resource request that we have made has been made and provided for by the state. And they have done some amazing things when you look at 38 to 40 some counties impacted yet again from a storm event. I want to highlight disaster legal hotline. Sometimes folks have some challenges during these times and might need some legal assistance. Crisis Cleanup continues to be quite successful. That is an app or a website on your phone that if you are struggling with some recovery issues and cleanup issues, you can put in a request in that crisis cleanup line, and nonprofits will try to find an opportunity to either serve you or find a civic group to assist you, and that's working really well. And I am not an accountant or a CPA, but I thought it was quite interesting that for some folks there'll be some extensions with tax filing this year in certain circumstances related to Milton, and again, that's very helpful for a lot of folks. I want to thank you for the timely state of emergency declaration. As I mentioned early on, the National Hurricane Center was quite concerned about this storm, and what we don't want to have is a meteorological surprise with a last-minute turn, changes in intensity, and all of a sudden we're not in a posture in terms of evacuation that we want to be at. So thank you for that support. We threw the dice a little bit, seeing the storm potential and impacting Port Manatee. This is a big, big issue. Port Manatee continues to come back storm after storm to be a challenge for fuel. And again, hats off to the state. When it's all said and done, we will have gotten at no charge about 48,000 gallons of fuel from the state, most of that trucked in from Louisiana and Alabama. The governor has placed some money for mitigation strategies at Port Manatee. Obviously, it will take some time to address that. But again, we really leaned forward on fuel ordering because our vendor is what they call a non-rack. Fuel means that they don't get allocations, and Port Manatee became quite congested and deliveries got backed up. But our hats off to the state. Not one time did we run out of fuel in Collier County with the abundance of lift stations and plants and the continued operation that we had to have of those plants on generator due to power fluctuations. Our special needs clients were well taken care of. We reached out to them. We had about 2,900 people in shelters. Landfall on Siesta Key is a Category 3. Our thanks again to the Growth Management Division and that team for putting together rapid damage assessment and the automation that they have put in that process with roughly $280 million worth of damage that they have reported and found in Collier County. That does not necessarily include some of our other infrastructure things, other things that are ongoing such as storm drain management, maintenance, clean out, et cetera. I've never seen a storm event with this much tornadic activity. Very unusual, and as you know, some catastrophic damage in Central Florida. Again, we remind the public, pay attention to these alerts. They're quite serious, and as we have said before, in this unstable weather environment, tornadoes can fire up. 713,000 people through the Collier County portal of Alert Collier and from the National Weather Service messages that went through that portal were notified. A carryaway here is that only 5% of the residents acknowledge that on their phone. We really need you to acknowledge, and then that second and third call or that second and third text goes away. Our 311 call center, John Mullins' team, Angela as well, 2,234 calls to help citizens with information, and those are 2,000 calls that did not go into 911. And that's a real success story, so 911 can concentrate on life-saving emergencies. 21 press releases from the Joint Information Center team, 331 posts on social media garnering 2.5 million impressions. People look to social media for their source of news and information, especially in a disaster. And we've really gotten that team matured in their efforts to, across the board with different agencies, to make sure that we're out there with one voice and one message. Spanish engagement was quite good, and 593,000 visits to the county storm homepage. We always work to be self-sufficient in logistics. We only made 21 requests of the state. 4 of those were canceled because they were solved or addressed with other efforts. The fuel I have already mentioned, and the partner missions, the agencies that come together in our EOC, 56 agencies, put 324 requests. 88 of those were solved intergovernmental. In other words, I might have needed some cones from Marshall that Marshall could have loaned to the city and those kind of things. So working as one group, 88 mission concerns were solved. The bulk of those, again, were commercial power. Our lifelines, hats off to, again, water and sewer with all of their power challenges and everything else. No wastewater spills during the entire event, no pressure loss during the entire event. Our pollution control team supported us with fuel mission coordination with county fleet. And trust me, that was like somewhere between an auction and a 911 dispatch in terms of where fuel was going and to keep all these systems up and running. Hospitals did really well. We had close contact with all the hospitals. They remained for extensive period, again, on backup generator due to power fluctuations. Our thanks to CCSO, who took on additional security and traffic missions for us as we struggled a little bit on stoplight traffic signal power restoration with Florida Power and Light for a number of reasons. Sadly, in the transportation world, there were 2 fatalities in Collier County. These residents lived outside the area, but were involved in a traffic crash here. Our roadway flooding was well marked. The public, we kept them informed, thanks to Marshall and his team with Road and Bridge. The extensive sand overwash, which is not unusual depending on the angle of approach with a storm, as you all know, was quite extensive and a lot of work going on to push and pile that sand and manage that. And obviously we went through some low-speed travel due to flooded roadways. 91 intersections had various contacts with generators, and 10 signal techs from transportation working around the clock. Highest sustained gust reported 60 miles an hour. Highest gust 60 miles an hour, sustained 32, and our maximum storm tide of 5.8 feet in Naples Bay reported by the National Weather Service. Outages, again, those numbers certainly fluctuate, but roughly 85% of the service area by both Lee Co-op and Florida Power and Light were impacted. And many of these teams were recalled from Asheville as well, and certainly that became problematic with impacts to the entire state. A couple of noteworthy challenges. Our sandbag program, not ours, growth management and the entire team that made sandbags available, that was a huge demand. Again, unstable power to some of our plants and lift stations was problematic, as well as the fuel challenges and tornadic activity. So those are some of the takeaways that are in our planning to make sure that we find some more contingencies for that. We did not operate any commodity distribution or points of distribution because retail opened so quickly. I'm surprised and pleased to see the number of retail outlets here that had generators in place. Publix has always had an on-site generator program. Sam's, Costco, some of those other major outlets, Wawa, all of those had generators in programs, in place. Our emerging Disaster Ready Collier County, our nonprofit group that is becoming an entity to work with all of our other nonprofits, continued to engage. You see in the picture here where we were loading up some excess supplies that we had from the state, and that was going to Captiva for flood cleanup. We have over 300 faith-based nonprofit groups that we're communicating with now and leveraging those partnerships for various supply needs. Debris, Carrie's team over at Solid Waste have a program going back to regular programming, if you will, for debris cleanup. And again, bundle it, bag it, container it. May take a day or two extra to get these small limbs and things cleaned up, but that is part of the regular collection process. And at the collection site website, there's some more information if needed. For our residents, I can't stress these things enough. Make sure that you register with FEMA. It does take time, but there are resources. There are ways that they can escalate support to individuals and families. They also have an app, or if you go online, might be a little faster to register than trying to get on the 800 number. 311, our county 311 is available to answer questions, as well as 211 to put you in touch with other nonprofits. If FEMA calls you or sends you a letter, respond immediately. We can't stress enough, there will be inspectors in the area. You want to keep them on task. You want to keep them on appointment if they're coming to provide some assistance with you. We have not yet received notification from the State Emergency Management Office when we will open up a disaster recovery center. We are still discussing that with them, and certainly the constraints that are going on nationwide with FEMA resources. They're here, they're coming, but it takes more to put a disaster recovery center, and we will hear from them soon, and hopefully we can get that center open fairly quickly. A lot of rumors going on, and now FEMA has a website to help dispel rumors. Again, I think the team is working very hard. Thanks to my EM team, Amy Howard, our planner, who put a lot of this information together. Many divisions have submitted additional reports to me, and there's a lot of information from GMD and from Parks. Unfortunately, it was not enough time for me to make this presentation much larger, but we have a lot of good information, a lot of benchmarks from our other departments and divisions, but thought today you'd just like to have the highlights. So I'm available to answer any questions or concerns that you have. Again, my sincere thanks, and every time, every storm is different. We learn something and we put it on that list and go to work. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Summers. I got one question. I want to go back to the responding to the tornado notices that you get on your phone. You said 5% of the public acknowledged it.
So that doesn't mean they didn't receive it, but there's a way to acknowledge so the system doesn't call you back. I understand they get a little annoying, but again, this catastrophic tornado damage that we saw in Central Florida, we want those people to say, hey, not only did I get it, I acknowledged it. And that also helps us feel a little bit better that that warning was communicated.
No, I think that's important because I don't think it's out of negligence. I think it's out of ignorance that you don't need to respond. So I'd like to let the public know that when you get those tornado warnings, to acknowledge them so that you don't get the repeated ones. But also, I want to warn you not to get lulled to sleep like the boy that cried wolf with these tornado warnings. Warnings today come from radar indications. Used to, back in the day, if there was a tornado warning, there was a tornado spotted. There was an actual tornado. Everything else was a watch when conditions were congruent. But tornadoes can come on you in a heartbeat. And watch the sky, watch the clouds, and just use good common sense, and don't get lulled to sleep in these warnings, because they come all the time. You're busy, you're doing things, and your phone goes off, and it's annoying. And most of the times they're negligent. They don't apply because we don't have a tornado, but the time that we do, you need to be prepared. So Commissioner LaCastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of observations, and then I do have a couple of questions. I think a couple of things we do need to educate the public on, because we learn from every storm, but every storm there are some similar things that seem to not change. So the acknowledgement, like you've already brought up, was one that I had written down. And I don't know if it's something that, Amy, if we send out something, now that the storm, even though there's still cleanup and things going on, some sort of press release or county messaging, not only on the acknowledgement, but a lot of effort was put into the sand and sandbags. I mean, Trinity was working crazy, getting truckloads of sand, especially in my district, because I have a lot of low-lying areas. But we still have 6 weeks left of hurricane season. The majority of sandbags never got wet except for rain. They were preventative. We didn't get 8 feet of surge, so the sandbags were fine. People tend to just throw them in the garbage, and then they're all screaming for new sand and new sandbags. We mentioned at one of the meetings here before the hurricane hit, put them on the side of your house. If you took the time to wait in line for 10 sandbags, you might need 10 more, but at least you already have 10, sitting there. I mean, it's an incredible waste of money if people are just emptying that sand, out in their backyard or throwing it somewhere else, because that was, tons of sand and sandbags was utilized. And then also a little bit of swale education. I can't tell you the number of emails I sent out to folks that said, I've got water in my swale. And I said, I know that's why you have a swale, because that water would be in your living room. And that's what the swale's doing its job. And you said it perfectly, Dan. Every storm's different. So there are maybe some newer folks that have moved here, or even some that have been here a while. Some of the emails I got were, on the 3 previous storms, my swale drained a lot faster. Now it's not. Mission failure. County needs to get out here and fix my swale. And the reality is there could be a whole bunch of reasons for the swale not draining as quickly as a previous storm, as you know. Or it could be a blockage. It could be debris or whatnot, but it also just could be excessive rain, excessive water. It's not the same as the previous storm, but I got a lot of those notes, so I don't know. Those were just 3 areas of education. Dan, a couple notes just about your EOC. The couple times that I popped in there a few times, it was really impressive that even after the storm passed, how robustly manned it was, and just how you had such a command as always. So you have another hurricane under your belt, but just standing in the shadows and watching things happen was extremely impressive. And seeing nearly every cubicle filled. I mean, it makes it easy for us that if we really want a point-to-point conversation with the key person, you go to the AOC, or at least call it, and yeah, you had key people there. Even some additional folks, without mentioning some names, that hadn't been there before in previous storms, so you must have done a good job squeezing a few folks. I did want to give an additional shout out to the 311 operators. I didn't know what the number of calls was going to be, but you nailed it by saying, 2,000 plus calls. Those would normally go to 911, and just, popping in that room and just speaking with them briefly. I mean, they were keeping a smiling face and getting some pretty crazy calls. So I know those folks that worked in that room. I know that our thanks out to them. A couple of questions here, and maybe Amy, these are more for you. But 2 things that popped up a couple of times. So we had some lift stations that were on backup power, but then we have quite a few that aren't. So that's my one question is that something that we are concerned about? And in our budget discussions, we should be talking about lift station backup power. And then also, it was weird driving around the county. You'd be driving down Collier Boulevard, and some lights would be out, and then you'd have a whole bunch of sheriffs out there, which I'm sure that's not the best use of a sheriff if the light was working. Obviously, the light not working, the sheriffs need to be there, but when every light's out, you got your whole sheriff department playing traffic cop and not doing some more robust things. But I was a little confused that some lights were working, some lights were out block by block. And then I think I traded notes with Trinity, and she said, well, some of the key lights are on backup power and some aren't. So that might be another data point that I would assume we want to have as many lights, especially at the major intersections. I mean, I was at a major intersection and I had just missed a major accident. It might have actually been where one of the fatalities was. It looked like it was something serious. The sheriff was on scene, but EMS hadn't even gotten there. And that was a pretty major intersection that you would think would be on, if we have a handful of lights or maybe more on backup power, it's like, wow, that's really not an intersection that we can afford to go down. So, it's not a discussion for here to vote yay or nay. We're going to move $10 million here. But those two data points, if we need to move around some funds for backup power, I realize every single thing can't be on backup power, but it would seem like we've learned some things from some storms of where a little bit more investment could really save manpower, save some inconveniences, and in some cases maybe save some lives. So I don't know, your comment, I see Trinity walked here. I didn't want to make it a long discussion, but those were two big takeaways that I had on the backup power.
I think the backup power for the lights, as well as just the strange situation with the power in general this storm was something that was very frustrating to everybody. So we've had discussions about getting additional backup power for the storms. Public Utilities has done a really good job ever since Hurricane Irma, when we had a lot of trouble with backup power or not having enough. They have continuously added backup generators, utilizing disaster money that comes in as well as our own resources. So we'll continue to do that. Trinity and I have already talked about that too. There will be disaster money that trickles down, from the feds to the state down to the counties, and this is a great use of those dollars. So we'll look at where we want to strategically apply for grant dollars, as well as prioritizing our internal funding to continue to get backup power where it's needed. The trouble with transportation, which I'm sure Trinity shared with all of you, is that you can't just roll a generator out there and plug it in. Right. There's more things involved with that, of how the backup power attaches to those signals. So it's something we're cognizant of. Also getting some help from the state, which we ultimately did from FDOT. So making sure that we're positioned for that. I don't think anybody expected what was going to happen with the electric, and the explanations are interesting about why it was that we kept having these problems. You would have electric one day post-storm, and then you didn't have it the next day, and FP&L really struggled, getting their arms around that as well. So now we've learned something else, so we will be pursuing dollars both in public utilities and transportation to continue to bolster up that backup power.
Thank you.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just want to thank our staff for a job really well done. As the storm was approaching, I knew that we were in good hands with our emergency management folks and all of the partners that we participate with. So I just want to thank you for that. It's a really professional job, as always. And I can tell you that most of us feel very comfortable knowing that we're in good hands when storms are approaching. I also want to thank the Sheriff's Department, because they were out manning the intersections very, very quickly. I noticed on the first day or so, people were very consistent in stopping at the four-way stops. But after a couple of days, people started running those areas just like they had a green light. And so there may need to be some more public education on how to handle four-way stops when there's a storm. But the Sheriff's Department and our staff did an incredible job. But I also want to, and I think, Dan, if you could maybe even spend a couple minutes talking about this. I know you mentioned this, but one of the things that we always do is help our neighboring counties. And I know that our folks at Community Development sent a team up to Lee County to help them with their inspections. And I think the public needs to know maybe a little bit more about what we do to help our neighbors. We do that obviously because it's the right thing to do, but also when we are in need, we can count on our neighbors to come down and help us. So maybe if you wouldn't mind spending a minute or two, just let the public know what we did to help folks up in Lee County, and also in points north of here, because I know we sent teams up to up north for some of the other events.
Sir, thank you. And it is one of those things that all of us in public safety really enjoy doing. It's an opportunity to provide that assistance. And it's also a tremendous learning environment when you get into major incident response. So the emergency management community has a massive, what we call mutual aid agreement. We actually have a business process. And so let's take, for example, where we sent EMS personnel, a strike team with North Collier Fire, Collier County EMS, other fire organizations. Our mass casualty ambulance bus goes together as a team under a mission or a work order where the community or the state has requested that resource. And there's a lot of paperwork behind it, but we are reimbursed for it, and we do travel up there under a mission request. All of my emergency management colleagues in the Southeast region, Southwest Florida region rather, we're very close. We break bread together all the time. If we need to respond to help one another, basically we have a standing order that if the Glades County EM shop or Hendry County EM shop needs some relief, we'll check in with the boss, we'll go in and go up there and relieve those folks. But we also have a robust network, and that's all the way through county partnerships with different state agencies, and even being on a FEMA recall list for mutual aid. So it's a well-oiled machine. Nobody has to be embarrassed about requesting that assistance because they want accountability in what goes up and what comes back. So it's number one, it's an honor to serve. Number two, it's never an issue that if we have excess or the availability, we put it out there. And our next door neighbor will say, hey, I need some building inspector guys for a couple of days. We can break that loose, we will. We need to help relocate a hospital as we deployed during Hurricane Michael. We went all the way to Mexico Beach. We moved patients from Mexico Beach all the way to almost to Dothan, Alabama. So we moved patients so that hospital could close. So Fort Walton, and we moved them to Fort Walton as well. So it does work well. We're happy to provide that service. It's very much a team effort. And again, federal, state, and local work mutual aid resources very well together.
Well, again, thank you for a job really well done. And
thank you.
Hopefully we won't have any more hurricanes this season, but I know we're going to have them. And so it's nice to know that we've got a good team in place.
We move on to the next hazard, and we'll try to pay the bills for this one too.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yes, I'd like to echo my thanks as well. I mean, yeoman's job for everybody.
Absolutely.
That's in this room and those that aren't in this room. It's a honor to be serving with you folks, to see the prioritization that comes into place, the selflessness that's put out by our county staff it's an honor to me, and I just want to say thank you. I would I think from a public service messaging, my takeaway on the traffic light signalization, we need to start the messaging sooner, just to educate the populace. As it's coming, I heard Commissioner Hall on the radio, I think the day after the storm, and to remind people to treat a dark intersection as a four-way stop. A lot of people didn't. We did. I think we need to carry that message forward as the storm is approaching. Number two, remind people to stay home. You know, this storm was a little unique. We didn't have the after effect of the storm after it in fact made landfall. We didn't have the debris on the roads, and people were right out looking to see what was in fact going on. So give it a day after the storm goes. Give the system an opportunity to catch up. And then from a messaging standpoint, remind folks to throw out the anchor when you're coming to a dark intersection, just to help with the safety aspect of things. I have a public service announcement for my colleagues here. If Trinity Scott sends you on a message or a mission to do storm damage assessment, refuse. I was gone for 2 days in eastern Collier County, riding those roads out there looking for trees and yeah. But well, it wasn't a wild goose chase. We did determine some things where trees were leaning and power was out and water was over the road from the swales. But just for your information, if she contacts you, tell her you're busy. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to also take time to echo what my colleagues have said up here. Dan, and the fantastic job you guys did at the EOC. All the organizations participated. I was extremely impressed. It was my first opportunity to come, and I each tried to make your briefings in the morning, to see where we were at and where we were going, and the prep, and then also the after action was very impressive, along with our public safety, our EMS, fire, and sheriffs, of course. Everybody gets stressed in these situations, and everybody handled it very professional and did their task at hand. The one thing, I don't know if we really want to get in the weeds on it, but I know I tried to put out when we found out that the excuses coming from the power companies of what and why this phenomenon was happening, because that was the majority of the things I was getting asked about, days after the storm. And even myself, I went through it myself. I had power for 8 hours, and I had power for 12 hours, and I had back for 6 hours, and then 10 hours. It was just like a back and forth. I'd wake up, didn't know if I was going to have power for the day. But, and I tried to put out what I thought was the official explanation. I don't know if it's something you want to put out now on record, what they were talking about the salt water versus the fresh rain.
Well, we do generally know that saltwater infiltration on the system, and we saw a lot of mist, you saw a lot of sand, you saw a lot of things. As we all know, salt, water, and electrified aluminum and copper don't mix well together. And so we have heard the discussion, and Florida Power and Light and Lee Co-op do have some ways to basically rinse circuit breakers on the poles and those type of things. So we know some of that's going on. We also know that in many cases a phase can drop, and a phase might be still from a leaning tree on a power line that has not been caught yet, or that phase could be dropping in and out. So there are a lot of those things that are all mitigation strategies that hopefully we'll get a little more information from Florida Power and Light. Remember too that we've had significant recent years damage to systems, and FP&L, I don't think there's any utility that can go and do a complete replace or rework in the coastal environment. So I think we're seeing a domino effect of maybe old damages or being exacerbated by additional saltwater and storm surge. I think we're seeing ongoing mitigation concerns for our above ground. And again, what we have seen with these fluctuations in balancing the grid is also an indication of some damage that they had at the substations. And honestly, we're even lucky to get power poles and transformers and those kind of things right now based on what's happened with the hurricane history in the southeast just this year alone. So I'm not giving credit and I'm not giving blame. I think there is a situation here where some additional analysis we need to hear more from FP&L and Lee Co-op. And again, these fluctuations have been damaging equipment. These surges we know have caused some challenges at medical facilities just in the last week. It was impacting pump controls as well, hence the reason to stay on generator power for so long. So hopefully this is something we can after action with Lee and Lee Co-op and FP&L.
So I have a question to piggyback on that.
Yes, sir.
I get emails from the public saying that local government has failed miserably because it's our job to protect health, safety, and welfare of the people and the quality of life regarding the power grid. So for the public's sake, what kind of management does local government have? What kind of supervision over FPL? What kind of authority, if any, do we have, or are we just subject to them?
Well, sir, we have no regulatory authority over the utilities.
Say that one more time.
We have no regulatory authority over the utilities. Our state does. Primarily that's related to rate rate structure. I'm sure there will be, and the state has to approve any disaster restoration funding as well from the utility. So we are part of that free market environment. However, I'm going to tell you they cooperate with us very well. They're an integral part of our EOC teams. They quickly acknowledge phone calls and emails. Just this morning, 40 minutes before voting, we had a library out, and we called the cavalry, and the cavalry showed up and got power back on 8 minutes before voting started. So we had those kind of things, and so I will say that they are responsive and cooperative.
Great, thank you. Commissioner LaCastro.
I'm sorry, I just skipped over something in my notes. But to Commissioner McDaniel's point about prior to the hurricane getting out the best information that we can, we're learning from every storm. One thing that was confusing in my district was the shelter announcement. You have some citizens out there, more than a couple, that think every school is an automatic shelter. So I actually got bombarded with emails when the shelters were announced saying, basically, I'm summarizing, but this is what they were implying. You're the worst out of the 5 commissioners because they were all smart enough to put shelters in their districts. Why don't we have we have 2 big schools on Manatee Road. Why weren't they announced as shelters? And my answer was, Manatee Road's in evacuation zone A. So just because it says there's a sign in the front of the building that says school doesn't make it Fort Knox. It depends where it's sitting. So we don't want you to be in a shelter and you're waist deep in water if we get 10 feet of surge. But when we announce the shelters, maybe a little note on the bottom that explains why these are the shelters, because there were people in my district that automatically thought every school should have been a shelter. And so I was getting notes, why are so few schools being announced as shelters in District 1? And it's because, 60% of District 1's under mandatory evacuation. You live in A and B, and oh, by the way, why are you sending me an email from your home? You're supposed to be gone. But, I try to help educate folks a little bit more in my newsletter and whatnot. But when we send out announcements before these storms reminding people, like I was saying, not to ditch their sandbags, acknowledge the 311 calls. This is why they're shelters. Here's what you do at a 4-way stop. We did some of that, but the more we can do it in a robust manner. And then I know that all 5 of us then piggyback on whatever the county sends out, either in our individual emails or newsletters or however, we're talking to the public, and it all sort of helps. But the shelter thing was a question in the first few hours that they were announced in my district, just because folks were confused, thinking automatically every school is a shelter.
You answered that very well, but remember, I have a statutory charge to make this as low risk as possible. So again, well inland from the wind effects, and certainly we run from water. So we want you on high and dry. That's where I have more resources, backup generators, those type of things, and resources are readily available. That list does fluctuate, and I have certain statutory things in terms of wind speed and construction and things I ask the school district. We're blessed. I get good support from the school district, and they continue to build very robust buildings. But it's all about location, 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 and that's why we have those the way that we do. And we also staff based on our risk analysis at the time, and we were spot on with the number of buildings and personnel that we had.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, there could be a school that may appear robust to citizens, and it's in an area that's not evacuated, but you just sort of answered the question. It actually might not have certain things that are required to make it a safe shelter, because that was some of the other notes I got of schools that weren't in evacuation areas. Why isn't it a shelter? And I might have traded notes with you or somebody in the EOC, and I got that exact answer. It was that school is missing certain things, but just don't unlock the door. And you really strategically pick the locations that you can unlock the door and it's an instantaneous shelter. So
with our partners at the school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Very good.
Great.
Thank you all very much for the time and the support.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 7, public comments on general topics not on the current or future agenda.
We have one registered speaker at this time, Garrett FX by Rent.
For the record, Garrett F. Expirant. I'm just here because Commissioner LaCastro started something a couple years back, was a great idea. It was a shout out to people that did great things for. I thought that was really cool. I hadn't seen that in all the years I've been up here, and I thought that's pretty neat. And what do you think happens? My car breaks down, and because I can't hear I have howitzer hearing. It's a military problem you have when you can't hear a specific noise, which is everything in my car because I drive an old car. Anyhow, long and short, my battery went dead while I was talking to some real estate people in a Starbucks, and then I went out and I got my jumper cables. I thought, I got to find myself a policeman. And I was used to finding policemen that were community cops because those guys are always helping me. It's a scary thing because it just happened to be I walked up behind this policeman and I had my 12-foot long, super long, heavy-duty jumper cables, and I had them open like that. I should have never done that behind a policeman. And this policeman's name is Stephen Smith. I promised him I would come up here today and swear that everything is true, and he did help me, and he educated me. And I thought, within about a day of that event, which was in a Starbucks parking lot, I don't like their coffee, but some people drink that stuff. I almost get run over all the time in parking lots, more than anywhere. But long and short, he says to me, when you're out on the road, people don't realize how fast cars go now. Electric cars, which I spent my last weekend in a Tesla, riding up and down streets all over the place, delivering pizza to poor people. It was interesting because the car was driving itself, and it was slowing down when it got behind other cars, and it was going the speed limit. And long and short is, this is what I promised Stephen Smith. I said, you know what? People need to slow down. In that particular situation, right after the hurricane, I was at Wiggins Pass Road, and somebody moved the stop sign into the median. They thought it was blocking somebody, and of course, crashes all over the place. So as far as that goes, Stephen Smith, and his name is Stephen Smith, and Stephen's been a law enforcement guy riding around in cars for 27 years. And he's still alive. It's amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen Smith. I did exactly what you told me to do. Bye.
That is the only speaker we have for that item.
Commissioners, we have about 15 minutes to the court reporter break. Rather than start the land use, perhaps we can take a couple of the 10 items. We have forestry here. That would be a good one to take, and maybe one other, and then we can get a break and then start land use.
Great. All about it.
All right. Item 10A is a recommendation to promote a public hearing hosted by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Florida Forest Service, and the Management Plan Advisory Group for the Ockaloochee Slough State Forest. I thought I was going to really mess that up.
Okay, slow. Just say okay, slow.
On the draft 10-year land management plan of the OK Slough State Forest. This item is brought to the agenda by Commissioner McDaniel.
Morning, sir.
Hey, good morning. Mike Weston, Forestry Resource Administrator at the Florida Forest Service, Coosatchee Forestry Center, and appreciate the opportunity to come speak in front of everyone today. So the big news state forest wise is usually Picayune Strand State Forest, and that restoration project is getting ready to close out, and we're very excited about that. There's about 5,000 acres of state forest land also in Collier that you can't get to because there's ranches around it, but Ockaloochee Slough State Forest, mostly in Hendry County, 32,000 acre state forest. We've had it since 1999, and it's the lesser used forest. If you want more of a traditional forest, et cetera, planted pine, lots of turkey, deer, nice places to ride your bike, et cetera. But as part of this whole process, we do have a 10-year land management plan that we open up for public comment, and also asked Commissioner McDaniel to attend the management plan advisory group. So we have a selected number of individuals, some conservation groups, private landowners that we invite, also soil and water conservation district folks, et cetera. But at 10:30 a.m. on November 19th, we'll have a public hearing at the Hendry County Extension Office. So that's 1085 Pratt Boulevard in LaBelle. And then at 1 p.m., the Management Plan Advisory Group will meet. One quick change for folks that are doing writing in The address in here should be my office address at 10941 Palm Beach Boulevard, Fort Myers, Florida, 33905 for written comments. With that, we're very fortunate to partner with Collier County on all these activities, along with all our other partners, and I'd be open to any comments or questions if there are.
Thank you for coming this morning. I really appreciate it. I want to stress to the community, I mean, our state forest system is a godsend, if nothing else. And these 10-year management plans are imperative for public access, public use. These are lands that are bought with your tax dollars. And it's imperative that we engage in these 10-year management plans. Now, I do have one suggestion. Start scheduling your 10-year management plan meetings not in November. I have an environmental wildlife survey that I'll be on myself in another part of the country, and Jamie French has volunteered to come in and serve in my place necessarily on that. And I'm making a joke, by the way. They asked me to be on the Picayune State Forest 10-year management plan and did the same thing. So, but I will also offer my office as well if anybody who utilizes our state forest system has any suggestions or any way that we as a community can enter into the management plan, because it takes time. You have to have it in the plan in order for it to be effectuated. Anything that we can do as a community to enhance the public access to these state lands, please let us know. And thank you for coming this morning.
Right. Thank you.
10A or 10B?
10B, yep. Next up, we have item 10B. It's a recommendation to authorize staff to initiate the process of installing a Safe Haven baby box at a county-owned and operated emergency medical services EMS station and approve any necessary budget amendments. This item is brought to the agenda by Commissioner Hall.
Right. Yes, I wanted to bring this up because this is pretty much cutting edge as far as opportunities for moms who want to yield their child up and they don't feel like they can raise them. And it's a safe place that they can do it. It's anonymous. It's the babies that are placed in these boxes will be adopted with a closed adoption, so the parents or the birth mom and dad never know where they're going to go, but they feel good that they've left them in a spot that's better than where they were. So we have one registered speaker, very important registered speaker.
Uh-oh.
No. I have
four.
video.
Well, we have a registered speaker with the video.
Oh.
Sorry, we probably didn't.
She doesn't require a slip, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Okay, I'll hurry. Good morning, Commissioners. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for all your hard work. And if anyone knows how hard you work, it's me, because I'm behind the scenes, and I know it's a lot of effort. But I just wanted to ask for your consideration this morning to approve the first baby box installed into Collier County, which would be at a fire station. We've been working with Chief Choate and Jeff Klatskow. Been going on for a while now. But anyway, we have a little bitty short video of a success story of baby boxes, and just wanted to, again, ask for your consideration to install the box. Thank you.
Oh God, somebody put a baby in the box. It actually worked. Somebody actually used it. So I rode into the hospital with her. We get to the hospital, go straight to the children's ED. I hand the baby off to the nurses so they can do all the stuff they do at the hospital. And I pulled the doctor aside and I had asked him, like, when's the caseworker going to get here? Because I would like to adopt her. Me and my wife have been trying to have children for the past decade without any luck. We're certified to adopt children in the state of Florida. We have an approved home study. All we need is a child.
Nice.
It's been amazing. Every day, me and my wife still look at each other and just go like, I can't believe, we have a child. We try not to take a single moment for granted because we've been waiting and praying so long for this to happen. It's not about my wife. It's not about our journey to have kids. It's not about me being a first responder. It's about, this beautiful little girl who was given a chance at life and that, she's been adopted, she's loved, and hopefully her birth mother sees it and recognizes that like she did the right thing. She doesn't have to worry anymore. Her daughter's taken care of, and is love beyond words can even describe.
Nice.
That's awesome.
All you need is one.
Yes. So that's just an example. That baby box was in Ocala, and that was the first one that had been implemented and been used at that location. So it inspired me, and like I said, this is a cutting-edge thing. This is new in the nation, and just the thoughts, we're going to put this at Station 76 at Vanderbilt Road and Logan. And our initial thoughts were we should put this baby box in a location where it would be highly, the odds would be more to where it would be used in a location. But instead, we chose this location because the thought was that if a mom does drop her baby off in the box, she could walk away knowing that she's left her baby in a better situation than where she came from. So we've chosen Station 76 to put this baby box in. So I will make a motion to allow staff to get this in motion and approve it.
Second?
I'll say, well, yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Now that we've approved it, there is privacy for the mother, if I'm not mistaken, with this. So there's anonymity, and it promotes life at the same time. So there's no repercussions for a mother or somebody that's bringing a baby in.
It's a good thought and a good question, because state statute says that mothers can drop their children off now at an EMS station, a fire station, or a hospital, but there's no anonymity.
Right.
And this allows the mother full anonymity and no shame, no harm, no foul, and it's a happy ending for everyone. So that's why we wanted to do it.
Well, thank you for bringing it forward. I like it.
Thank you. So why don't we go ahead and take a court reporter break, and we'll come back at...
Let's whip out 10C and be done.
Whip out 10C?
Yeah, 10Cs will be a quick one.
Got you.
Mr. Chair, I don't mean to overstep my bounds.
No.
4
I
minutes.
didn't even see
can
10C.
I won't read 10C. I feel a little embarrassed. I was having a conversation with Rep. Mello, who is the driving force behind this constitutional amendment, and then a couple of my friends shared that several other counties had done resolutions. We've done a couple of resolutions in support of or in opposition of some of the amendments that are coming forward. And so, but this has to do with Amendment 2, and this codifies, similarly to what I was talking about, the right of Floridians to hunt and fish in our state, and it codifies it into the Constitution. And I was delinquent because I was speaking with Lauren, and she was like, well, how come your board hasn't done a resolution? I'm like, well, yeah, usually somebody asks. And so the county attorney was very assistful, and the county manager, in sending it out as a one-way. I apologize for the delinquency, but with that, I'd like to make a motion for 10C as written.
I'll second it. Motion and second to approve this resolution to support hunting and fishing forever in Florida. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Happy hunting.
Now we can go to court.
Court reporter break.
Yes. Let's come back at 20 till 10:40.
10:40.
Chair, you have a live mic. Before we start land use, I just need to direct everybody's I missed the Artist of the Month, and I direct everybody's attention to the back of the room. The October Artist of the Month is the Naples Marco Island Everglades Convention and Visitors Bureau with a display of artistic contributions of the Hispanic community for Arte Viva, a celebration of Hispanic arts and culture. Now in its third year, this year-long celebration kicks off the first weekend of November with events that celebrate the Mexican Day of the Dead. Community activities will include music, concerts, visual art, exhibitions, dramatic performances, food festivals, public art installations, and more. Arte Viva has been a collaborative initiative of many arts and culture organizations and hospitality partners from Florida's Paradise Coast. The festival has been recognized by Florida and international festival and event associations with tributes and awards acknowledging its innovation, uniqueness, and creative collaboration. For more information about the event schedule, visit www.arteviva.com. And with that, we are now at our advertised public hearings, item 9. I will read both 9A and 9B into the record at the same time. And these were continued from the January 23rd, 2024 BCC meeting to the September 24th BCC meeting, and further continued to the October 8th, and continued now to today. First, 9A is a recommendation to approve an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners amending the Collier County Growth Management Plan to create the Matson at Vanderbilt Residential Subdistrict to allow a maximum density of 150 multifamily rental units with affordable housing. The subject property is located on the north side of Vanderbilt Beach Road, approximately 825 feet from the intersection of Vanderbilt Beach Road and Livingston Road in Section 31, Township 48 South, Range 26 East, Collier County, Florida, consisting of 5.88 plus minus acres. Its companion item 9B also continued from all of those previous meetings. This item requires commission members to provide ex parte disclosure. It's a recommendation to approve an ordinance for the property from a rural agricultural zoning district to a residential planned unit development zoning district for the project to be known as Matson at Vanderbilt RPUD to allow construction of up to 150 multifamily rental units with affordable housing on property located on the north side of Vanderbilt Beach Road, approximately 825 feet from the intersection of Vanderbilt Beach Road and Livingston Road in Section 31, Township 48 South, Range 26 East, consisting of 5.88 plus minus acres. With that, if all participants could stand and be sworn in by the court reporter, and then we'll do ex parte. Very good. Commissioners, ex parte?
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, I have ex parte on both A and B.
Commissioner LoCastro.
I do too, meetings and emails.
Commissioner Kowal.
I also have meetings and emails.
Commissioner Saunders.
Thank you. I also had emails and meetings on both items.
And I have meetings, emails, and calls on both items.
Commissioners, just for the members of the public that intend to speak, they also need to stand and be sworn in by the court reporter. Sorry, Terry. All right, we'll begin with Mr. Yovanovich.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, Rich Yovanovich on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is a limited liability company that acquired this property about 2 years ago, and David Stevens is the applicant's representative. Andy Bolig with Rohr's Acquisition, LLC, is the actual developer of the property, and we'll go through the details of what that proposed development is. I think this is Rohr's second or third project in Collier County. I'm the land use attorney on this project. Mr. Arnold is our professional planner. Mike Dellett is our engineer. Jim Banks is participating by Zoom. He's our transportation consultant, and Marco Espinar is our biologist on this project. I'm going to do kind of an overview of the property, an overview of the details of the proposal with regard to income restricted units, and then have Mr. Arnold kind of do a brief overview of the master plan and then open it up to any questions. The property is located on the north side of Vanderbilt Beach Road. just to the east of Livingston Road. It is almost 6 acres in size, and as you can see from this aerial photograph, it's the site of a former vet office and a former horse farm. To our right is a senior housing facility, and to our left is also a senior housing facility. And those two senior housing facilities, the one to the right, Sandalwood, is 25 units per acre, and the one to the left is 14 units per acre. And then the apartment complex down here is 15 units per acre, and Village Walk is in this direction right here, also one of our neighbors. What we're proposing on this property is to have a multifamily project, and within that multifamily project, there'll be a total of 150 multifamily units. Under the existing a growth management plan amendment to create this subdistrict. What we're proposing to do is go to 150 units. We have to do a growth management plan amendment because under your growth management plan, you can't get above 16 units per acre with an affordable housing density bonus in this particular area of Collier County. You can get up to 25 units per acre with an affordable housing density bonus in other areas of Collier County, but not in this area. So the purpose of the growth management plan amendment is to allow us to attain the overall project density of 25 units per acre. There were questions about, so that's a 91 unit per acre bonus over what the 59 that occur today as market rate units. There was a question about the original proposal, which had 30% of the units set aside as income restricted units. With your, I'll call it the standard request of 15% of those units to be at the 80% and below median income, and 15% to be at the 100% and below median income. And there was a question of, was 30% of those units, basically 45 units, enough to justify a 150 unit per acre, 150 unit project. So I met with, obviously, the property owner, and I met with the developer, and since the Planning Commission meeting, at which we did receive a unanimous recommendation of approval, and we had your staff report, and we actually were on your summary agenda for the original meeting, but we continued it because there were questions about the income restricted units. We have gone back and modified the proposal to include another 10% of the units at the 50% and below income category, which I don't think any market rate developer has brought forward to date, and another 8% of those units at the 120% and below category. So the overall number or percentage of income restricted units in this particular project would be 48%, well above the 30% that has become kind of the standard. And that's recognizing that this is a higher end, project for a density per acre versus other projects that have come forward. What that really means, though, is we're getting 91 additional units by providing income restricted units. And of those 91 units, 72 of those will be income restricted. So for the additional 19 market rate units, 72 units will be income restricted, which means of the bonus units, 77% are actually income restricted. And I think I wanted to make sure I went through that math, because prior to that, it would have been roughly 45% of the 91 bonus units, which is slightly under 50%. So a significant increase in what we're proposing as part of this proposed project. What I also wanted to bring up early on is there are existing uses, obviously, on the property that had traffic generated from those existing uses. So this project will increase in the PM peak hour the total trips by 63 PM peak hour trips over what already existed on the property based upon the prior use. And I know there's concerns about traffic on in Collier County, but these are people that are coming to Collier County anyway, to work in Collier County. They're already on the roads. Any morning that you drive up to Fort Myers, or any afternoon when you're coming back from Fort Myers, you can see the roughly 50,000 cars on the road each day coming to and from Collier County, many of them to work in Collier County. So our proposed project will result in a reduction in the trip lengths by allowing people who are working in Collier County. This proposal has the standard focus initially on essential service personnel, which includes firefighters, sheriff's deputies, nurses, EMTs, all the essential service personnel that are necessary for our well-being in Collier County and for our quality of life in Collier County. Commissioner Kowal shared a story with me regarding the sheriff's office and the sheriff trying to recruit new deputies and how difficult that is to recruit deputies for probably two primary reasons. Housing is one of them, and two is, pay scale. We've got to do something to make sure we keep sheriff deputies living in Collier County, teachers living in Collier County, and EMTs living in Collier County. And this is a project that will assist with that. As Amy read into the record, there are two petitions in front of you. One is the Growth Management Plan Amendment, and one is the PUD. They mirror each other as far as the commitments to income-restricted housing. This is an example of employment or a graphic of employment within a 10-mile radius of this project. You can see that this project will serve a significant portion of Collier County, with some of the major employers highlighted on this exhibit. It is a good location for people to work throughout Collier County. It's near schools, it's near fire stations, it's near hotels, it's near hospitals, it's near EMS stations. So with that, that's an overview of what we're requesting, how we came up with the density request that we're asking. I'll have Wayne take you through the proposed master plan, and then we'll be available to answer any questions you may have regarding the specifics of the project. Hopefully we've answered most of them during our presentation. Wayne?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Wayne Arnold, a certified planner with Grady Minor and Associates. And what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the master plan. This is the version that would be adopted because it's in black and white, but let me go forward a couple and just show you the colorized exhibit. It's a little bit easier to understand. And so what we've proposed is essentially an H-shaped building, and we think that does two things. One, it puts the less massing facing Vanderbilt Beach Road and the golf course. It allows us to tuck our amenity package into the rear of the building. It also allows for us to have not as much of a parking field in front on Vanderbilt Beach Road, but allows us to park along the sides and the rear. So our primary access point is on Vanderbilt Beach Road, essentially in the middle of the site. We do also have an interconnection with the Sandalwood Village project to the east that is also, when we had that approved several years ago, it was approved with an interconnection as well in that location. So we've mirrored that, so we have an opportunity to connect to their access easement and make that connection. We unfortunately don't have any access opportunities directly to the west across Bradford Square to get over to Livingston Road. But we do have a good project in this particular case. You can see the green spaces. I know that one of the things Rich didn't mention, but we held a formal neighborhood information meeting over a year ago, and we had no attendees. We had our Planning Commission hearing that was unanimously approved with no public comment. We heard from some of the Village Walk residents, and we held an informal informational meeting with them last week, I guess it was, to talk about issues, and we showed them this presentation and answered some of their questions. And I know that some of those residents are here today, but we heard a lot of the same things that Rich has mentioned: traffic. We think in this particular case, having such a centralized location and the high number of affordable income restricted units, that this makes a lot of sense for many reasons. Really good access to Livingston Road, north-south through the community, east-west across the county, and you saw the exhibit that Rich had on the screen. Within 10 miles, you have almost every major hotel that's in the urban area outside of Marco Island corridor. Many of the high schools are major hospital systems, so well-served in terms of employment opportunities for these folks to reside there and have easy access to their place of employment. We've agreed to some enhanced buffering along the Tiburon Golf Course. That was something that was similar to what Sandalwood Village had proposed, so we picked up on their buffering and extended that across our rear property boundary. We've established development standards here. What we've proposed is a 4-story building, and that's pretty common for what you're seeing with most of the apartment complexes that are being built throughout Collier County. Here's a conceptual rendering showing you sort of the entry porte-cochere and just an image of the 4-story nature of that project. Roar's development, who Rich mentioned, this is the 3rd project that we're working with them on in Collier County. A lot of high-end finishes and details. These are just some examples of, the pool amenities, signage, style of buildings, et cetera, that they propose to be at this location. So it's going to be a high-quality project. The difference being 48% of our units are going to be income restricted, which is, I think, unprecedented for any project that we've brought before you. As I mentioned, we had unanimous recommendation of support from the Planning Commission at the 30% of affordable units. So we have an 18% increase since you've seen that from the Planning Commission recommendation. That's in a nutshell our presentation. Our team is here to answer any questions that you might have. And with that, I'll be happy to yield and take your questions.
Mr. McDaniel.
And I think Wayne or Rich, either one can answer this. What is the underlying zoning today?
The underlying zoning is agriculture.
It is ag.
So it supports the pet resort and the abandoned riding stables.
Okay. What is the hold period for the income restricted units?
Income
all
restricted
of them
are for 30 years.
It is a 30-year hold for
30-year
those.
commitment, yes, sir.
And then last but not least, even because you've, and it's good that, I think it's good that you have increased the amount of units that are in fact affordable. Is there a deviation or distinguishment between the at-market units and those that are going to be held in an income restricted basis?
Every unit's the same.
Okay.
You're not, as far as the fit, the finishes, every unit's the same. There's no distinction within the quality.
That's all the questions I had.
So just to make the math clear, you had 59 units by right.
Under your growth management plan, we get
Under the growth
59
management
per
plan.
acre.
So what you're asking us for is 91 additional units, of which 72 of those
are income restricted.
Are income restricted, making a total for the whole thing, 48%
Correct.
of this project will be for the workforce.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner LaCastro.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's a bad rumor in this county. It's been in the media that we're possibly building too much affordable housing, which I find, we get beat up because we've dropped the ball and didn't build enough affordable housing. So, we got beat up for 2 years of that. And then I've, read recent articles or seen things on social media where folks are accusing us of overbuilding. And then I find it as an unbelievable statement, because when we cut a ribbon on these places, they immediately have 400 people on the waiting list, and all these people didn't come from Daytona Beach, California, or Argentina. They were living in our own community, but they couldn't afford to live where they were, so they moved to this new place. I like the increase in the numbers. I've met with y'all before. I didn't have any really showstopper questions, and to me, it's only gotten better to address the need. So, you know, I'm a supporter of this project unless I hear something from one of my peers that maybe I didn't think of. But I think that some of the stories out there that, you know, we're just throwing affordable housing, you know, anywhere arbitrarily, you know, we're rubber stamping, you know, construction projects. There's not a construction project we don't like, and they all get approved with, you know, after 30 minutes of discussion isn't true. I really want to commend the county staff, you know, led by, you know, Mike Bosey, Jamie French, Trinity. I mean, all the people that are involved in the process well before it comes to us. Our planning commission, who vets these projects, you know, thoroughly. They're not just arbitrarily approved, and this one has only gotten better since I was first briefed on it, and at least in the way of the numbers and the enhanced buffering. And I mean, these are the kind of things you sometimes we aggressively negotiate for. I like that it's already in the project. I mean, it's not in my district, but I think, you know, we've all said before, we feel like, you know, the Collier County is all of our districts, and we all vote on it regardless of district. So I'm a supporter of it unless I hear something that I just didn't think of.
Commissioner Saunders.
I had a couple questions for Mr. Bosey. Is this the appropriate time to ask his questions?
I'll yield. Yes.
Mr. Bosey, I'm kind of curious as to I've seen some statistics, and I don't have them in front of me, the number of affordable housing units that we have approved and the number that have actually been under construction over the last several years. I'm just curious.
Mike Bosey, Planning and Zoning Director. In general, the number in the last 3.5 years, this Board of County Commissioners has approved, in terms of income restricted units, close to 4,000 individual units. I don't believe if we were checking with Ms. Cook's group, the Site Development Plan Development Review, I don't believe, probably less than half of them have been submitted for building permits, meaning that they're actually coming out of the ground yet. But this commission in the past 3.5 years has approved over 4,000 individual income restricted units. But what I would say to the Commissioner LaCastro's comments in terms of an oversupply of affordable housing, I would love that we would to be in that situation. We're not in that situation. We still import 57,000 people a day to come work in here. So if 72 units can be allocated to those individuals who will be living in closer proximity to where they work, it will be a net benefit to our transportation system. We definitely are still in Cormac Giblin, our Housing and Economic Development Director, can reiterate, we have not satisfied the affordable housing deficit within this county. We are continuing to make strides, and we are encouraged by the gains that we're making, but it most certainly is an effort that we have to continue to seek and make progress on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Kowal.
Thank you, Chairman. I kind of have 1,882 that are approved.
That's correct.
But not broken ground yet. And we have 1,691 that have permitting, but considered under construction, but not actually, all of them have actually broken ground. But they're in the process. So the total is 3,573 approved to date. So, you know, like what Mr. Bosey was saying, it's far cry from what we probably really need, and realistically. I just wanted to, I know there was some concern, some of the residents, I think we'll have some public speakers here eventually, but I know there was something brought up to my attention about, there was talk about a U-turn on Vanderbilt Beach Road. And I noticed now that when I looked at the blueprint here that's up on the board, it says you have the interconnection with the Sandalwood, which, is that going to be actually complete into that Sandalwood?
I don't know if we can force Sandalwood to allow that interconnection to occur. We obviously will work with them and try to make that happen, because that will improve, because they have a dedicated left. Yeah. If not, then we'll have to either U-turn there or go a little bit further to the east to do the U-turn if you're coming back from the west direction.
But I mean, that's a fix to the problem.
We're obviously going to work hard to make that happen. There's the opportunity to make it happen. But I can't sit here today and say that's guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only thing I saw.
Yeah.
I like the project overall. It was just, if that can happen, I think that would probably solve a lot of.
If I can just kind of piggyback on the approved versus the actually constructed. A lot of those projects were approved when financing, the interest rates were significantly lower and the ability to actually come forward with the projects. As I was asked this question in another jurisdiction, you were here 3 years ago, why is the project not built yet? I said, well, there's been some changes, but this project is financed and ready to go versus some others that, we're getting the zoning approval, but they don't yet have their financing in place. And that's an important factor. There are a lot of units, not enough, but units built but not yet financed.
Yeah, I did not support this project at the 30%. I didn't think that there was enough public benefit. But when you came back and you said that there were 48% of them, that was a game changer for me. And I just want to address a couple of issues. I had the privilege of meeting with the folks at Village Walk to have a discussion about it. And some of the concerns were the traffic that was going to cause from people coming to U-turn. And after I left that meeting, I thought, well, people that are coming out or people that are coming eastbound who need to do the U-turn at the light at Village Walk, there's a light there. And they can only turn left and do the U-turn on the green arrow. So that will not affect at all people coming out of Village Walk when their light turns green. The other comments and concerns that I've had since that meeting is the people just want to be assured that the stormwater that's going to be on this project is not going to go across the street and flood or make anything worse for the Village Walk residents. So I'd like to address that for just a second.
I could tell you what the law says, but I think you probably want to hear from the engineer who's going to tell you that the system will be designed to make sure that we don't flood out people across the street.
Sure.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Mike Dellett, engineer with Grady Minor. The stormwater system will be entirely on-site, meeting Water Management District rules and Collier County rules. Some of it is underground and some of it is above ground. The outfall discharge control structure will discharge to the east. Sandalwood Village has a swale in front of the property. And then is there a bigger map?
It's not moving. I don't know why it's not moving.
Hold on, Rich. Let me take a look.
Thanks, Troy. You probably want that one? Good, okay.
So I'll use the cursor here that ultimately the control structure, which will discharge from the site, drains along this swale along Vanderbilt Beach Road, and then the Collier County has an outfall for these properties, Sandalwood, and for these existing parcels right here. And there's a pipe that ties into the Vanderbilt Beach Road drainage system, and then that water is conveyed out to the I-75 discharge canal. So no water heads south from this area.
Great. Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, just one quick question. You brought up an interesting point, Rich, and it's something for you, Mr. Bosey, I'd like you to take into consideration. As we move towards maturity, as we continue to build out, since Commissioner Saunders and I have been on this board for 8 years, there's been multiple circumstances where interconnectivity between properties wasn't provided for. And so I'd like to see that going forward where there's language in the PUD or in the rezone or of a cooperative effort to get to that particular point. That's going to help enhance traffic, mobility, flow, emergency services, even if it's a gated access point. If the development that's to the west of this proposed project allowed for an emergency access out the north end of that property to be able to get over to Livingston Road, I can understand them not really wanting an access point in and out across the back of the property to get to Livingston, but I think I think we as a community need to start to incentivize that interconnectivity between two property owners. I don't want to put it into a force circumstance, especially after the fact, but going forward, that needs to be an initiative that comes from our staff when a developer comes forward, that contiguous property owners have a capacity of interconnectivity. So I'd like to see that going forward. And also, because I would assume, those two are over there in a powwow. What are you doing?
Yeah.
He just turned his back to me. I was on a major sermon, and he turned his back to me.
Sorry?
It's okay.
I think you're being talked
I was being schooled on something else.
You guys know how this works?
Yeah, I do.
You need us to take another break?
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm joking. I would assume that you would be willing to pay for the access.
Absolutely,
point to go over
and I was, in response to you, we have all gotten smarter as we've practiced our different disciplines longer, and you see more and more PUDs coming through where interconnection is actually addressed. Where it's broken down in the past, and we're smarter now, is the person who says they will provide the interconnection is in a position where they say, I have to provide it, but it doesn't say I can't make you pay $1 gazillion for it. So we're having to get a little bit more sophisticated in how we write that, because that's sometimes how it is broken down in the past, where the price for the interconnection becomes.
And I don't want to belabor the point today, but you triggered a thought. Well, we can't force Sandalwood to give us that access, but we could put it in with a cost share agreement within the zoning approvals as we come through. So, that's my point.
Yeah, that's where we need to get a little bit better.
And if the government can help incentivize that, I wouldn't be opposed to that. You know, a TIF, a tax reduction, to help offset the exposure for the property owner might be something that could be effectuated as well, just to incentivize that interconnectivity across the board. I don't want to jump on developments, but there was another one we approved several months ago where the interconnect between the school to get to the light, there wasn't ever any real codified agreement in place for that. So, but I think we can help along those lines. I'd like to see us do that.
Mr. LaCastro.
Something just sparked a question when they were talking about runoff. Maybe this is for Mr. Bosey, and you guys were showing the arrow of where there's a swale now, and then how it feeds off into another area. And, I mean, the question's really for both of you, but I would really value the county's opinion. Does that area need to be beefed up or enhanced at all because of this project? So it's great that that's all pre-existing, but at times, we build projects that then require enhanced drainage, the swale to be redone, or all of the above. Is any of that an issue, or what's pre-existing now will meet the needs of whatever runoff this project would bring about? And then obviously, if we have public comment, before we vote, I want to hear from the public of something that, I or we all might be missing. But can somebody talk to me about runoff, and if what currently exists is sufficient?
Yes, again, it's Mike Dellett from Grady Minor. So the current conditions, there's no stormwater management system for those properties, the two properties. So the runoff is it's not controlled. So it's quite a bit. It's under the new requirements for the property when it's constructed now, the apartment complex. It'll have a control structure which limits the discharge rate to much lower rate. So in a post condition, the discharge rate will be much lower than in the existing condition.
Yep. Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
We got some public comment?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we have 9 registered speakers, 8 here in the room and 1 online. Joel Thomason is your first speaker, and he will be followed by, handwriting. Charles, is this Melchior? Oh, you'll be second, sir. Mr. Thomason?
Good morning, Commissioners. I am here. I'm Joel Thomason. I live in Collier County. in District 2. So I am here to highlight things that I find to be troubling with these two agenda items. And I'm a big supporter of workforce housing. And I think you have already done some things that are good. You effectively renamed low-income housing to workforce housing. You made it be a positive, where productive people have an ability to live closer to where they work. And you've also thoughtfully approved, and I've heard a couple different numbers now, but I had about 3,500 apartment dwellings such as these over the past time period. With that said, I think, and some of these points have already been cited, so it'll sound like a repeat, I guess. But the agenda item today, amending the growth management plan to allow 150 apartment building, it's not admirable and it's not valuable like the projects I think that you've already approved. Because I hear lots of the meetings, and I've heard you be very thoughtful about the things that you consider. And why I think this is a wrong-minded project, first of all, when you have to amend a growth management plan to make it work, the existing number of units in this specific area is 10. If you add to workforce housing, it's 16. They want 25 and a half. And one thing I haven't heard today is they also want to reduce the green space from 60% to 40%. So you're sort of you're paving over the area. And I do think it does affect the neighborhood. And they cited a couple of the places that are right next to where this would be. But if you look at the two largest residential areas, the number of units allowed per acre at the Vineyards is 4. And the number allowed at Pelican Marsh is 2. So you're going up to extreme to allow 25 and a half units. And I applaud that they increased the workforce housing. I think, again, the idea is a good thing. But it does nothing to affect the density. And it doesn't do anything to affect the loss of open space. So I think that's not a good thing. This agenda item did come up in January, and at the time, staff did not support it. They didn't like the density. They didn't like the loss of open space. And I mean, the words that I read, the staff reported that based on low density character of the surrounding neighborhoods, there's not, because of that, there's not adequate justification for 25 and a half units. So they did propose that the density be decreased to 16.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
So if you fast forward to today, because the developer has increased the number of workforce units.
Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate you.
I'm sorry?
Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Charles Melchior. He'll be followed by Robert Brown.
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you. And I love Collier County. You guys do a great job. However, we're trying to put a project in where it doesn't belong. It's a great project. We need workforce housing, but it doesn't belong in this location. As somebody that lives in Village Walk, I am very concerned about the amount of water that's coming off Vanderbilt Road. When our community was built, we were told that we had to have the drainage for Vanderbilt Beach Road come into our lakes. Our lakes are completely and totally swollen, and we worry about our homes getting flooded. This is the first I've heard about this project where there's a sluiceway going down the north side of Vanderbilt Beach Road going out to the I-75 drainage pond. I'd like to see that someplace in a diagram, because if they could do it, I'd love our community to be able to do it, because some of our houses at this point and some of our oak trees are somewhat submerged at this particular moment without having a major rainstorm this last 2 storms. We also have, I personally have a major problem with the Bureau of Emergency Management Services, if there is such a thing in Collier County, because between X amount of time in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the morning, you can't drive through 3 traffic lights. It's traffic light backed up. So I brought that up at the last meeting, and you folks were great, and Commissioner Hall, you were great coming to talk about it. And they said, well, you got to call 911 and get somebody coming in. 911's going to have the same problem. You can't get by traffic. There is no access road. There's no emergency exit road. There's no helipad or anything to bring somebody in. Our communities are getting older. God bless all of us octogenarians, whatever that proper word is. We need emergency services to come in more often than a younger community, and it's very, very difficult. Then we have the access with turning off roads and coming in. There are just so many problems with quality of life here that I believe this community is not in the right spot for. And I believe if we let this community go through, somebody's going to have an accident, and this litigious community or this litigious era in the United States of America, Collier County is opening themselves up to a major lawsuit because we're allowing a project that has no right to be there. It's a great project in the wrong location. Thank you very much, and thank you for doing a good job.
Your next speaker is Robert Brown, and he will be followed by Bernard J. Flaherty.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Robert Brown. I live at Village Walk. I'm a homesteaded resident there. As many of you know, I'm a retired police officer as well as a retired attorney. I come here basically opposing the project, but from a different slant. Commissioner Hall, when you came graciously to our complex, you've heard some of the residents complain, well, it's going to pass because the commissioners get influenced by the developers. So with that said, I took a different tact. I grabbed a bunch of my retired police officers that we belong to. I believe 4 out of 5 of you have come to our meeting of the Collier County 1013. And I said, gentlemen, I need to look at the assumption that the developers have great influence on the commissioners. Let's prove it wrong. However, we found something different. We did the tact of following the money. We looked at what the commissioners, we looked at the developers, we looked at all the players involved. And at the end of the day, what I saw, it disturbed me. But I didn't want to go to the press. I didn't want to go to TV. I decided the simplest thing to do is to see if there's an appearance of conflict or can these commissioners vote on it. So I brought it before the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tampa, and I also brought it before the state's attorney up in Fort Myers. Now, that was before the hurricane hit, and I have been in contact with them. And the request I have is not to jeopardize yourself by voting on something where you may be compromised or conflicted. I'm asking you to take the time, table this, let them look it over. The assertions that were made, if they're true, would resolve it, and you would not be able to vote on it. But if it's not, at least you know where you can proceed and not proceed. I know many of you. I have coffee with you. I like you. Unfortunately, Castro, I haven't seen you at our meeting, but you are invited to come one day if you decide. I know Marco Island is a trip, but come on up, you can come. But what I'm asking you gentlemen to do is please, based on the information that has been provided by top law enforcement officers that are retired, cream of the crop, I'm asking you now, let them look it over. Take the time. As Commissioner Caldwell said, there's 3,000 projects out there. Nobody broke ground yet. You don't need to vote on this today. Put it on hold. Let's see what the U.S. Attorney and the state's attorney say on this matter. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Your next speaker is Bernard J. Flaherty, and he will be followed by Nora Marks.
Hang on, I want to make a comment first, Bob. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. I've never said this will pass because commissioners are influenced by developers. I never said that. I know that I'm not. I've never taken it. I don't even know who the developer is on this project. I don't care if a U.S. attorney, a federal attorney, a local attorney, or whatever attorney has whatever they want to think. That's their opinion. I know me, I know my integrity, and I know what I've done and what I haven't done. So I just want that to be public record for the news. Thank you.
Bernard J. Flaherty is your next speaker.
No comment?
No comment.
No comment. Okay.
Mr. Flaherty?
I still like you, Chris.
Oh, I know.
Thank you.
My name is Bernard Flaherty.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, Commissioners. I rise in opposition to the Madston Vanderbilt project for reasons that have already been covered, so I won't bogart a lot of your time. But I'm very, very concerned from a safety perspective with the traffic flow and the density. I know it's allowed if you approve this variation, but I respectfully request that you give serious thought to not approving the variations as proposed in 9A and B. Also, I think it's very important, and I know you're aware of it, as has been pointed out by Mr. Brown, make sure that there are no conflicts. And I have great confidence in the Collier County Commissioners to do the right thing, but as a resident of this district, I'm very, very concerned with it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Your next speaker is Nora Marks, and she will be followed by Diane Green-Kell.
Hi, I'm Nora Marks, and I live in Village Walk. And
Can you pull that mic down just a little closer? Thank you.
Sure, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm also very, very concerned with the traffic. I'm not going to take much time because I don't have all the numbers and all the specifics, but I have personal problems with this. The entrance, one of the traffic problems is the entrance to the Bermuda Island already causes tons of problems with people starting to turn in there. We've had fatal accidents there. I think with people coming out from this new development, trying to cross over to get in onto Livingston, it's going to be horrible, and there are going to be more accidents. I don't know. I also feel that affordable housing, workplace housing is very important. I think it's the wrong place to put it also. And that's about where I feel about it. It's all about the traffic. But could I see the rest of my time?
We don't normally do that, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Diane Green Hall, and she'll be followed by Kathleen Adams.
Good morning. My name actually is Diane Green-Kelly.
I'm sorry.
And that's okay. And I'm a resident and former president of the Village Walk Homeowners Association. I'm here to comment about this item number 9. I'm asking that you oppose the request to approve an ordinance to amend the Collier County Growth Management Plan to allow deviations for the Matson on Vanderbilt development. Village Walk is a stone's throw from that proposed development, and I emailed a letter to each of you on September 29th spelling out all the issues, but today I'll focus on one, and that is density. What do they want? They want approval to preserve only 40% usable open space rather than 60%. Without your approval today, Matson is limited to 94 apartments, provided it has the affordable housing element. But the developer is asking for 150 units, which is a 50% increase to make it economically feasible. The developer's justification is to add units that are set aside for affordable housing for essential service personnel such as police and firefighters and teachers. But there are other projects, as we've heard. More important, this is a postage stamp plot of land. The increased density being requested is inconsistent with the communities surrounding it. And the traffic congestion creates serious safety hazards. As Nora said, we've had deaths, including residents of Village Walk. And I heard today how, yeah, there's traffic coming in anyway, but that's not the traffic I'm talking about. Residents wanting to drive east on Vanderbilt Beach from Matson must immediately cross past 2 lanes of busy traffic to get to the left turn opening in the median strip. U-turns are not allowed at the traffic light at Livingston, and allowing them still requires residents to quickly cross 2 lanes of traffic. Traveling west to the next light will simply block up that light. Let me be clear. I believe that someone who purchases land should be able to make the best, most profitable use of it. However, I do object to special treatment and deviations to increase their profits that infringe on the reasonable expectations, the quality of life and safety of thousands of residents already living here, including me. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Kathleen Adams. She will be followed on Zoom by Diana Cooper.
I'm Kathleen Adams, and I'm from Village Walk of Naples. And obviously, I'm not for the project. I've lived in Village Walk for 29 years. From Oaks Boulevard to the Gulf, there's one area vacant. That's the 5.8 acres, currently zoned for 10 units. Now we're going to have the Matson project, if you're foolish enough to approve it. And for that space, they want 150 acres, and that changes it to 25.5 units. From Oaks to Livingston Road, that will be the highest density project. I know the number of acres and the number of units, the density, on all of those communities in that stretch. Do you? Would you like to know? The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended 16 units per acre in January, as well as a greater setback from the road. Apparently, those recommendations were ignored. They also had recommended more of a setback, which is also being ignored. At a meeting this month with the engineering company and the attorney, we questioned the amount of green space. They indicated that the pools and tennis courts, or pickleball courts, were part of that. How can an impervious surface be considered as green space? Maybe next it'll be the parking. Now let's talk traffic. 150 units parking for 1.5 cars per unit. Most of those units, which are going to be 1 to 3 bedroom, as I understand it, could have 2 to 6 people per unit. Most of those people will have to be driving, of course, to get to work. They're not all going to start at the same time. They're not all going to be going in the same direction. The traffic coming out of Village Walk, and we're very lucky because we have a traffic light that we fought long and hard for, and of course Wilshire Lakes across from us gets to share in that. If you leave before 9 a.m. in the morning, yes, if you're going west toward the Gulf, you can get out. At least one car can, if it's before 9 o'clock. And then they could be hanging over into the eastbound lane. Our community of 850 homes was built on 350 acres. 84 acres of those are the lakes. And part of the agreement with the county at that time was that we would accept the water from Vanderbilt Beach Road. And as it has been pointed out, our lakes are very high.
34 seconds.
Oh, okay. So 70% of those are occupied, our 850 homes are occupied by full-time residents. At least 70% of those are full-time, would necessarily be Florida voters. If you have 1.5 people per unit, that's 893 voters. Something to think about.
Your final registered speaker joins us on Zoom, Diana Cooper. Diana, you're being prompted to unmute yourself. If you'll do that at this time. Looks like you're on a phone. I'm trying to remember the unmute commands. It's either *9 or *6. If you'll try that now. I believe this is Diana Cooper on the phone listed here on my Zoom. Diana, we're going to give you one more shot here. I know you worked long to get you into the meeting here. Try pushing *6 or *9 on your phone to unmute. I don't think it's going to happen, sir. Thank you. And that's all our speakers.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Yes, my question's for Mr. Bosey, if you would, please. We had some discussions some time ago on that higher density development down on 951, the Ecos project that's coming forward. The parking requisites under our current LDC seem to be inadequate for the new norm, if you will, the amount of people per unit. Have we done anything to address that yet?
No, we have not done anything to address. We would need the rest of the Board of County Commissioners to agree that we needed to analyze our multifamily parking requirements and to initiate a public planning study. I will say that even if we do have that direction, staff will be somewhat compromised. We are down 3 individual planners. We have had a tremendously difficult time. We've had 2 openings for over 6 months that we haven't been able to fill. We have a staff that has a lot of demands upon them without a lot of hands. But we would need the Board of County Commissioners to direct the staff to either engage with a transportation firm or do an in-house study in terms of how we allocate our requirements for multifamily parking, and see if and propose modifications based upon the analysis that's provided for.
Okay, let's bring that up under, not right now, but we'll have a discussion at the end of today's meeting with regard to that plan on, we'll see if we can get that direction for you to move that forward. Number 2, what are the, and I was reading in the backup, the land utilizations under the current future land, the FLU, we call it, future land use element map. What are other uses that could certainly would require a comp plan amendment? It's a agriculturally zoned piece of property. What are other uses that potentially could come to this site?
Well, this is an urban residential designation by our future land use map, which normally would allow for a range of densities for your residential development. But within that, you can also have a mixed-use development that could be proposed. You could have a commercial development or even a lighter industrial development. But a commercial or a light industrial development would require a growth management plan, such as similar to what's being proposed here today.
Right.
So a wide range of uses are what is supported by the urban residential designation.
That's what triggered the question, because I read in I read in the backup about the mixed use district, and under the urban residential designation, I know it would require a comp plan amendment, but I'm just talking about exposure for, because we've heard, today we've heard a lot about good project, wrong place, and so my rationale for that question was, what are we staring at some future date if this were to get denied today? I mean, commercially, how many square feet of commercial could be attained on this site?
The traditional, rule of thumb is anywhere about 15,000 square feet per acre. This being close to 6 acres, you're talking close to 90.
60, 80, 90, okay.
90 to 100,000. From a land use standpoint, from a professional planner standpoint, we feel this is an appropriate location for this type of density. You've got 14 units an acre. That's Bradford Square. That's to the west. To the east is Sandalwood, which is 16 units per acre. The heights that's being proposed are similar to the heights that are allowed. To the north is 50 feet. To the west is 53 feet. To the east is 62 feet. So it's right in the middle of what the allowed heights are. You're on a 6-lane divided highway. The amount of traffic that's generated by this project compared to the overall volume is most certainly de minimis. We've had our transportation staff looked at it. There's capacity on the road segment. When a site development plan would come in, an operational analysis would be provided by our transportation department, and any improvements within those road segments required from that operation analysis would be on the developer to be able to provide for. We think that this project makes a lot of sense at this location. One of the other things that we thought was most valuable was the diagram that the applicant had put on related to the employment centers within close proximity, within 10 miles of radius. There's a tremendous amount of employment opportunities, so we think that relationship between the affordable housing and the employment opportunities is a significant benefit for this individual project. And I would like to make a comment about some of the statements that were made by the testimony of the public regarding the staff report. This originally went to the Planning Commission. It had 22.6 units per acre, or 22.6% affordable housing. That was an older standard that we had provided for that this project started with. In our staff report, we weren't supporting it at 22.6. We said at 22.6 we could support 16 units per acre. If you were going to provide for 30% affordable housing, we think the public benefit would be significant enough where staff would support it. This now being 48%, staff most certainly does support this as it's being proposed. Just wanted to provide a little bit of clarity. The staff report that went to the Planning Commission was in a recommendation of denial because the level of affordable housing was 22.6. When the Planning Commission, or when the applicant agreed to the Planning Commission's 30% request and the additional setbacks that were incorporated into this PUD, staff has changed the position from when we wrote the staff report to a position of support with the additional 18% allocation. Staff most certainly is. And one final comment is the 10%, the 15 units at 50% or below. We haven't had one of that low of affordable housing level provided for within any of our market rate projects. The only time we would get that 50% or below has been traditional affordable housing providers that are providing for a wider range of affordable housing. So there's a lot of reasons why staff has arrived upon the position of support for this petition.
Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, Chairman. I know some concern, people were talking about the percentage of permeable property versus non-permeable property. I don't know in the design, I wasn't that detailed, but do you plan on using some pavers in areas and aprons and things like that?
The term is, it's not green space, it's open space.
Yeah.
And your recreational areas are considered open space under the code. So that's I think some of the distinction of what people are, they're equating open space, not understanding how the code defines open space to include your recreational amenities. So I think there's a little confusion there from the general public, just not knowing how the code works.
And I had another, I know it was brought up, reference to even in the morning because the particular community, Village Walk Circle, which depending on which way I vote on this, I'm going to take some heat because my in-laws live in there. So I'll hear it Sunday, probably at dinner. But the intersection, you guys have the lighted intersection coming in and out of there. And I know there was a comment, one young lady made a comment about the overflow where the cars stack up in the intersection, even when you have a green light trying to get out. Just for reference that, you know, if that does happen, you can contact the sheriff's department. That is a violation of state statute if somebody sits in the intersection and blocks it while you have a green light. I mean, we had that incident a few years back when I was still at the sheriff's department. It was on 41 in Pelican Bay. They had the same problem coming out of there in the mornings and going back in the evenings. And they reached out, and we did put a flex operation there, and they sat there during those hours. And when people sat in those intersections, they got ticketed. They got about a $200 ticket sitting in that intersection. So that does curve behavior at times. They're required to hold short even if they have a green light. So those type of things, if you bring those things to the attention of the sheriff's department, he will address them. So just for future reference. Other than that, like I said, I like the project. I think the location is something that we don't get the opportunity to really have it this close into the urban area where all the jobs are, and these people are trying to get from point A to point B and traveling miles and miles through this county or traveling from other counties to get here to support the way of life we take advantage of. You know, these, and I want to make sure people understand. There was a gentleman that made the comment that we changed the name of low income to workforce housing. If he wants to take the time, they are two different things by definition. And these are not low income. These are people that we depend on every day to teach our children, to make it safe. And, you know, I'd love to have a fireman as a neighbor or a school teacher or a police officer. I mean, to me, that's not downgrading my community in any way. So if he feels that way, then that's on him. But thank you.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the fact that this is going to be a lot of workforce housing. However, we have a tremendous amount of new construction, new work that's going to be going on Vanderbilt Beach Road, on Immokalee Road. We all know the efforts that our staff and we are making to improve the traffic situation, especially in those two corridors. I had asked the board to consider a pause on these types of developments until we had some of that infrastructure in place. I'm going to stick with that, and so I'm not going to support the project. And I think that we do need to make sure we have these improvements in place before we add to the congestion on these roads.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What's the difference between 25 units per acre right there and 2 miles down the street approving 33 units per acre?
That would be 7. No, I'm not sure what the question is. I'm not trying to be sarcastic.
You were in favor of the Havens, but that was 33 units an acre. And this one is 25 units an acre. I'm just curious as to what the difference in your mind is.
You're going to have to refresh my recollection on the Haven.
The Havens was 10 acres at Airport and Vanderbilt.
Okay.
It's not built yet either.
The difference is the transportation corridors that are impacted.
Okay. Commissioner LaCastro.
Mr. Bosey, can you come back to the podium for a minute? I want to piggyback on something that Commissioner McDaniel asked you. If this project was disapproved, the other things that could go in its place would probably be commercial, as you said. If some sort of commercial entity went on this footprint, would that generate more traffic than this project or less?
Not being a transportation area, but being a planner for over 2 decades, the commercial properties attract a tremendous more volume of traffic than what residential properties generate. Residential properties generate traffic, commercial properties attract traffic, and the rate in which residential generates is much lower than what the rate that commercial properties attract in terms of, so it's apples and oranges when you compare the difference between trips associated with a commercial project being up here and a residential project being relatively much less in terms of that impact.
And I assume one of the options is, we wouldn't turn this into a park and have nothing put on this property. So it's going to get something. And in your expert opinion, when it comes to the traffic, which people are concerned with, this is a much more advantageous project than the multitude of other things that could easily go on this footprint, maybe, and not even come to us for much of a, well, it would have to come to us, but it would have maybe a lot less controversy, I guess.
And I would agree with that.
Or it would have more because it would generate more traffic. That's what I meant to say.
And I would say that this has been reviewed by Ms. Scott and her team, and they are making a recommendation of approval from a transportation standpoint.
Well, this is in my district, and like I said, I was not a supporter of this project at all at the 30%, which the Havens was. But it's now 48% affordable, with even 10 units at less than 50% and less. I think there's great public benefit in this. I think the fears and the assumptions, I hear them, but I think the benefits outweigh the risk. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to approve this to approve both 9A and 9B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what conflict of interest? Yeah.
County Manager, why don't we take 11B and maybe 11C before lunch, before we get into the
Very good.
the longer discussion?
Of course. Item 11B, which was continued from the October 8th, 2024 BCC meeting, is a recommendation to accept a presentation regarding the authorized use of each of the 5 pennies of the tourist development tax pursuant to Florida's tourist development tax statute, section 125.0104 Florida statutes. Mr. Chris Johnson, your Division Director of Corporate Financial and Management Services, is here to present.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Chris Johnson, your Director of Corporate Financial and Management Services, and at your request, I'm here today to go through the authorized uses of your tourist development tax. Today, we'll go through a brief presentation on the TDC uses, a brief presentation on the history of Collier County's tourist development pennies, the current TDT allocations for the county, and then I just have a couple slides on the revenue kind of history or trends that we've been seeing in the TDC revenue. I'll start out with the authorized uses of tourist development tax revenue are found within Florida State Statute 125.0104. And I'm going to start with the first, second, and third pennies as they all have the same authorized uses as outlined in subparagraph 5 within the statute. The first use for the first, second, and third pennies is paying debt service or operating certain facilities. That includes convention centers, sports stadiums, arenas, coliseums or auditoriums, and aquariums and museums. The second authorized use is to promote zoological parks. The third authorized use of these 3 pennies is to promote and advertise tourism and convention bureaus. The fourth authorized use is to finance beach park facilities. The fifth use is beach maintenance, renourishment, restoration, and erosion control, including shoreline protection. And a newer use for these 3 pennies is the public facilities use, which I'm going to briefly here go into the requirements for that. So to utilize these pennies for TDT public facility funding, it's required that you take in at least $10 million in TDT revenues per year, which we do. It's also required that the Board of County Commissioners approves at the supermajority or 2/3 vote. Additionally, you have to use 40% of your TDT revenue collected on promotional uses. And finally, an independent professional analysis paid for by the TDC has to demonstrate positive impact on tourist-related business. Now that's for the first 3 pennies. The fourth penny, the authorized uses are for professional sports facility debt, operating costs of convention centers within the tourist tax, financed with tourist tax, and finally to promote and advertise tourism. The fifth penny can be utilized for professional sports facility and convention center debt as well, and to promote and advertise tourism. These are the 5 pennies that the county is currently taking advantage of. There is actually a 6th penny available for use for high tourism impact counties. That penny has the same authorized uses as pennies 1 through 3. And in order to take advantage of that penny, the TDT sales need to exceed $600 million within the county, or 18% of total taxable sales if it's from $2 million to $600 million in sales. Currently, the county is looking at collecting this year right around $50 million, which would translate to about $1 billion in sales. So we would qualify for this. To enact this other penny of revenue collection, an ordinance would need to be approved by a referendum in a general election. Any question on the uses of the pennies before I jump into the history?
You're going to bore us to death with history. I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
If you back up a slide with the use of the 1, 2, and 3 and the potential 6th, let's talk about the potential 6th first. What is, if we were by board decision to increase the tourist development tax, how much does that 1 extra penny tax increase raise?
It would, based on the $50 million for the 5, would be around $10 million.
About $10 million.
In our current environment.
Okay.
Keep in mind, TDT tax can be pretty volatile.
I understand. And again, when we did raise it to the 5th penny and supported theoretically to support the debt for the construction of Paradise Coast, we utilized that on a percentage basis. Not all of that was 100% debt reduction. There was a proportionate share that went over to beach renourishment as well. If I recall, like 25% or so that went into beach renourishment. So.
I believe that penny, which would be the 5th penny there, was split between your promotion and your sports complex.
Okay.
It's in the second to last column there.
I got you. So it was split between, okay, I had recollection that was split between debt reduction and beach renourishment, but a lot of things changed with Paradise Coast from the time that we started it to where we're at now. So back up to your slide on the uses of the first three, because I think in the next slide you skipped over one point, and it talked about only 70%, no more than 70% of the project could be funded, right? The third bullet point there, no more than 70% of the project funded from TDT revenue.
Correct, Commissioner, and that's if you're utilizing that new option under there for the public facilities.
Oh, okay, so that's just strictly for the public facilities. It doesn't have anything to do with...
Correct.
Okay. And what is the definition of a public facility?
I'm going to look over at our county attorney for that one.
I'd have to pull the statute, sir. It's rather lengthy.
Okay. I'd like to know what that is. Just, and you'll all, I mean, I am exploring ways where we can bring in additional tourist tax dollars and help assist our already existent tax-paying citizenry. That's something that I would like for us to explore, and I'd like to know what the flexibility availability is with pennies 1, 2, and 3 when you start talking about debt service. Back up one slide. That slide right there, paying debt on the sports arena, stadiums, so on and so forth. If you'll recall, one of my sad portions of Paradise Coast was the field house that was slated to be in phase 1, and now it's in phase P or something. It's way out here, and so is there do we have latitude within these first 3 pennies to move those monies around to service additional debt or not?
So currently those pennies are allocated based on your tourist development plan, which you see here, which is part of your ordinance. And I'm going to look at Jeff to help me with this, but I would believe, yes, you would. You'd have to amend the ordinance accordingly.
You have a great deal of discretion.
Sir?
You have a great deal of discretion on this.
Okay. Well, I certainly...
And one additional thing with that, Commissioner, currently with the debt service on the sports complex, all of our pennies were pledged for that specific debt service. So we'll have to check with bond counsel as well on the legalities of that, but we can do that.
Well, we're gonna. I mean, I what I'm hoping is that this opens up a wider discussion, because a wider discussion of how, when, and where we can utilize these available funds. And in conjunction with these allowable percentages of uses, we also have to have, where are we at with our funds? You and your happy fund accounting that I despise. Where are we at in these accumulated funds that continually roll over? Maybe that's in the boring history part.
Actually, that was a supplemental slide that I put up right here.
Okay.
So if you want to take a look, this is our TDT family of funds here from 1100 to 1108. I'm just going to go along to the end on the totals there. Your reserves are currently sitting at about $80 million. That includes your TDC beach reserves, which are the majority of that at $60.6 million. You can see our projected revenues for next year. We're really conservative with that just due to the volatility of the tax. So we're projecting about $37 million. To your point, Commissioner, every year when we open up the budget process, we're then forecasting this year's revenues based on the action we've had so far and the history. And we utilize that to rebudget for next year's budget. So we kind of wait till the money's in before we're spending it, in other words.
And that's a very prudent thing, especially with the volatility that comes along with this, because all you need is one decent economic tank, and then you're not collecting the pennies.
Exactly.
Well, I don't have any further questions, Mr. Chair. At this point, anyway, I might think of something.
Would you guys like me to continue with the history and go through the current uses? I'll leave that up.
Current uses.
I'll leave that up to the board. Okay. Currently, we use our according to our TDC plan, there's kind of three broad uses for the pennies. The first being the beaches, and as you can see here, there's two subcategories of beaches. We have beach park facilities in Fund 1100 and beach renourishment and pass maintenance in 1105. These funds utilize only portions of the first three pennies. 5.9, about 6%, goes to the beach park facilities fund, and 64.9, or about 65%, goes to the beach renourishment fund, for a total of 42.5% of all 5 pennies. And Jeff, I see you pulled that up. Did you want to?
I just pulled it up for the commissioner comments.
Yeah, this is on the public facilities, the definition of the public facilities and what that inclusion is.
So we have a public facility means major capital improvements that have a life expectancy of 5 or more years, including but not limited to transportation, sanitary sewer, solid waste, drainage, potable water, and pedestrian facilities.
And, you know, and without us digging into this, I mean, at this particular juncture, I would certainly like, we've already engaged a consultant with our priority budgeting processes. I think this needs to be, and Commissioner Saunders, did I not hear that the productivity was reviewing some of the productivity committee was reviewing some of the expenditures of the TDC?
Yeah, well, what the productivity committee was really focusing on was some of the lessons learned in terms of the contracting and the way the Paradise Coast process took place. So that's really their focus on that particular issue.
Well, it certainly, I mean, what this screams to me is that we've got a consultant that we're working with. We're looking at ways to reallocate available funding that we in fact collect, and what our fee structures are, and I would like this to be relegated over to I forgot the name of that company. What's the name?
Hunden. Is it Hunden? Resource X?
Resource X, yes. Thank you. Boy, I couldn't come up with that for anything. Not Hunden, for goodness sakes. We'll get to Hunden in a minute. But I'd like this to be relegated over to Resource X and have some actual specificities put into how we're utilizing these monies and where we can, with latitude, make some adjustments. Because again, if we can come up with an extra, and I'm using small numbers here, but an extra $2 or $3 million out of the TDT tax in order to offset repairs, maintenance, and upkeep of our park system, that frees up money in the general fund that can be reallocated over for other necessary infrastructure things. So I'm very, very appreciative of this information.
Commissioner Saunders.
Thank you. I was just going to comment on something Commissioner McDaniel had mentioned in his opening remarks, and that was that you were looking to kind of focus on projects or things that would increase tourist tax revenues. And I think, unless I'm misquoting you or misunderstanding what you said, it sounded like you were looking at ways to increase the tourist tax revenues by the use of these funds. And if that is one of your goals, that's clearly one of my goals as well. And that's one of the reasons why I've asked for an evaluation of the Paradise Coast Park and the Hunden study that's coming up next. Because I think when you look at what's happening at that facility, it's going to generate a tremendous amount of advertising with the professional sports, which will enhance our tourist industry, restaurant industry, everything. But the advertising from that professional sports team will be worth millions of dollars on an annual basis. And the issue that I'm looking to do is to try to use these tourist tax dollars in a way that does enhance our collection of tourist tax dollars. So I just wanted to comment that I agree with you if I didn't misunderstand what you had said.
Did you write that down, Terry? that he agreed with me for a change.
I have a question. Where we can use 70% of the TDT money to pay for public facilities, is that our ordinance or is that state statute?
It's a state.
Sure.
One question, because I meant to ask this when I had pushed the button there. On the slide that you had up that had or not the slide, I think you had the statute up, and you highlighted what public facilities are, and then down at number D, it said at least, let me make sure number D, at least 40% of all tourist development tax revenues are used to promote tourism. And I guess the question is, what does that mean to promote tourism? Because it says promote and advertise, so I'm assuming that those are two different things. For example, the Paradise Coast Park is a facility that does, in my mind, promote tourism.
I'm going to direct that question to Colleen.
Or is it purely advertising?
Now we have 3 lawyers asking the question. What do you think we're going to get?
We're going to get 17 answers.
Oh, good morning, dear.
Good morning, Commissioners. Colleen Green, Assistant County Attorney for the record. There is a definition of promotion in the tourism statute that provides promotion means marketing or advertising designed to increase tourist-related business activities. However, this provision in subsection 6 that we're talking about for public facilities is 2018, but hasn't been used that much throughout the state of Florida, so there really is not a lot of guidance on what exactly, how we interpret that D, that subsection D, to promote and advertise. But we can use the definition above in the statute of promotion and, work with the definition based on what the board's direction is.
What is that definition?
The definition is, it's on page 1 of the statute that you have a copy of. And it says promotion means marketing or advertising designed to increase tourist-related business activities.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, when we provide the facts and the evidence to the Tourist Development Council, we give the information to the Tourist Development Council to make a recommendation as to whether the activity or the expenditure promotes tourism, which is then sent to the board for their consideration.
It almost seems duplicative down there on D because it talks about promotion and advertising, and in the actual specific definition, they're separate. Promotion or advertising. So
That is word of the day so far.
yes.
Duplicative.
Oh, but there's
Good one.
And if I continue on with our current allocations, the next section is our promotion section, so it kind of segues right in, I think. So as you can see here, here's our promotion, 2 subcategories: destination and promotion and admin, and then amateur sports complex. Currently, of the first 3 pennies, 13% is going to the promotion, 100% of the 4th penny, and 28.5657% of the 5th. The sports complex, again, to pay the debt service and for future construction, is 71.42 of the 5th penny. That is a total of 47.85% of the 5 pennies we are currently allocating, or collecting on, I'm sorry. Any questions on that before I get to the last use? The last use we have is for the...
I hit my button. But
Nope, go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
guess I do have a question, because then what we came from, which was B1, B2 on the first page, says up to 40%. So if that's 47%, are we 7% over what's by statute? Or is that a different category?
Are we spending 40%? We're allocating the 47%.
Oh, so we're allocating, we're not actually spending it.
Towards promotion. And yes, it does get spent as well. But our current allocations are at the 47.85%. And just to also, just for the record, when we get to the next category, museums, there's actually one of the uses that gets cut off at $2 million, and additional funding goes into that promotion and destination for monies collected over the $2 million, which in the past few years has been close to another $2 million.
I just might not be following along with some of the columns or something, because like Commissioner Saunders had us refer back to the first page. It said 40%, and if we're at 40%.
Oh, and the 40% is the statute. So that's the minimum for that.
That says up to, not
if you're to utilize.
A lot of whispering going on.
Let me just go back to where we were with that. So 40% of TDT revenue collected used on promotion is a requirement.
That's not what
for
I'm talking about. I'm talking about that piece of paper laying there on the prompter.
Number D.
It's the B, no, first page, where it has definitions, and then underneath it says the amount up to 40%.
Let me pull this up for
Troy.
you.
I'm just curious. I might be thinking totally two different
attention.
apples and oranges here, but there it is. B.
Checking his Facebook.
Where is it at?
I think it might have been on the other page, Commissioner,
Yeah, you might be right.
on D,
Yeah, on D.
which was the 40%.
It's page 8 of 30, yes.
Which is the at least 40%.
At least 40%. All right,
Yeah.
that's what, I made the wrong note there. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. All right,
Everything
and then
I said.
moving on to the museum use, 12.8% of the first through third pennies goes to the county museums. Again, that's capped at $2 million. Any excess goes to the promotion fund. And then we have non-county museums at 3.2%-ish of the first through third pennies. And that is all of the uses, which you can see here in the, we've already touched on this. This is Exhibit A from your tourist development ordinance, and this is a tourist development plan. Any questions on this? Any other questions on this at all? The current uses? All right, I will move into the revenue then. This chart depicts the revenues collected from annually for FY17 to FY24. Just of note, the reason the FY24 column is green is because we have one more month of collections coming in. So there's about $815,000 between our record in FY22 and FY24. I fully expect us to be above FY22 collections this year. And then I'll go on to our, this chart kind of just shows you every line's a different year from 17 to 24. Just wanted to kind of show you how the money's coming in. Obviously, we know we're a destination in the winter months, and you can see there we peak in March with our collections typically on any given year.
And those collections lag 30 days.
It's actually, we collect it, it's 60 days.
60.
Because for our accrual fund accounting, we'll collect the money in November, and that's related to stays in September.
Accrual fund accounting.
Am
So that peak in March is actually revenue that was generated in January.
I've adjusted this to be the month that it's collected.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep. All right, and then I kind of touched on this when we brought up the budget slide, but this is the budget for TDC revenue for FY25. Again, as I stated, this is a conservative approach, but this kind of shows you the splits. You'll see there in Fund 1107, the museum, it caps out at $2 million. Any excess over that would be going into that 1101 promotion fund. And with that, that concludes my presentation. If there's any other questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
I don't know, I made a suggestion. You want to relegate this over to Resource X and have them do an analysis and come back to us with some advice? I
would, yeah, I would.
I'd
like to hear what they say.
I can get with Chris.
As far as the uses of
uses, appropriations,
Yeah, the
recommendations, working with our staff to give us some recommendations with regard to, because I don't want to just throw a dart and say we're putting too much into promotion, or we're putting you can't put enough into beach renourishment, but I don't want to throw a dart. I would like someone to have a look at it, and there again have a discussion about, is it time for us to allocate another penny to and again, that field house, I'm hammering on that field house because that's an 80,000 square foot Cat 5 indoor stadium inside of, east of I-75 for flood protection for, as we heard this morning, you run from the water, and if I-75 floods during storm surge, we're in trouble. So I would like to have some more analysis done and our board to have some discussions on what we can and can't use these monies for.
So just so I make sure I have everything you're talking about in order in my head. So a recommendation on the allocations based on the authorized uses for the 5 pennies we currently are collecting, and then an analysis on potential additional 6 penny.
That's correct.
Collection.
That's what I'd like to see.
With an aggressive approach, and then as far as these definitions, and then maybe just a solid approach to what we know we can do. But I'd like to see what the aggressive approach is, how much money and where we can spend that money and what for.
Okay, we can do that.
Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a little bit off topic, but because I guess it kind of deals with it too, because it's talking about the tourism money. I had a few weeks back, I had a meeting, people asked to meet with me, and it was the BID group, which is basically a business group in Fifth Avenue. It's all the businesses, restaurants, everybody that deals with Fifth Avenue created their own.
Stay up on the mic, I can hardly hear you.
I'm sorry. Like, I had a meeting, what's called the BID. I guess they called ourselves the BID. And I know last year we had talked about the Visit Florida, where we didn't participate in the Visit Florida with the tourism. And I think we voted not to last year, and see where we are. I can't remember if that's right or not.
You directed us to do further research and come back when we had metrics that would help understand what benefit we get from Visit Florida. That item still is not come back to you, but still in work. So essentially, you did not allocate money to it at this point.
Okay, because the only reason I ask is because they went to Visit Florida. I guess in the past, they've done it in the past to get a grant, and they were told they couldn't participate because we didn't participate. So I'm just curious if that, even though it took place, but, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
If I could. So Jay Tusa, Tourism Director for the record. So we are, as what Ms. Patterson just said, we are planning actually to bring that item back to you at the next Board of County Commissioners meeting for your consideration. But we did do an analysis and we have an update for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay.
So do we need to make a motion to accept the presentation with the direction given?
I don't think that would hurt.
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Good job, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Let's break for lunch and come back at 1:15.
Ooh, almost an hour.